Here.
Ms. McCallie. Mr. Mahmood.
Here.
Ms. Brogan.
Here. Please join me in a flag salute, pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Mr. Mahmood.
Here.
Ms. Brogan.
Here. Please join me in a flag salute, pledge of allegiance.
Flag.
That would be interesting. All night. Pursuant to the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, advance notice has been given to the Star Ledger, the Record, and the Clerk of the Village of Ridgewood. In addition, notices were posted in the office of the Board Secretary and in all school buildings. So welcome to our August meeting. We are going to have our presentations after comments from the public. If there are any comments from the public, we'll take that now. There's no one here making comments. It doesn't appear that anyone is waiting. We have a second comment period at towards the end of the meeting. So if that suits anyone, you can do your comments then. Otherwise, I'll close public comment and we'll go to presentations. Dr. Shores.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, for those who are here in person, but also those who are attending remotely or are viewing a recording of the meeting. Very pleased to introduce our first presenter tonight. We have Mrs. Ashley Anembo, who is our 612 math supervisor. She has been doing a lot of great work with us over the last year, especially. And today she is going to be presenting on our computer science curriculum and program review. Very interesting topic. So thanks so much for joining us, Mrs. Anembo. And before we give the floor, Mr. Friedman, did you have anything that you wanted to, I don't want to steal the thunder here. I know that you've been working with Mrs. Anembo on a lot of these.
Only that I'm looking forward to the presentation.
All right, Mrs. Anembo, the floor is yours.
Okay, so tonight I'll be presenting our 5-year computer science program review. So I'll start with what those 5 years look like. So year 1 of the program review actually was last year, and that is where the computer science department did a lot of research from comparable districts and resources, professional development, and other opportunities of how we can grow our computer science program here in Ridgewood. Year 2 actually started this summer with curriculum writing for our new cybersecurity course, which will begin this fall. And then throughout the year, we'll be doing continued research and professional development on courses that we can potentially offer for our middle school, which I will be discussing later in the presentation. Year 3 and 4 is monitoring the effectiveness and making suggestions for curriculum revisions or new courses or even the course progression for our computer science program for grades 6 through 12. Then year 5, the final year of our program review, we'll be analyzing data and how our courses went, collecting additional feedback and deciding what will our program goals be for the next program review.
Sorry, Ashley, you said it's the curriculum, the course is only a cybersecurity course is what we updated?
As of right now, it's just the cybersecurity course that will be starting this fall.
You're saying that's all we have, or that's what we're adding?
That's what we're adding. So
will everything else be examined as well? Or?
Yes, everything was examined. So the one thing that we have implemented coming this fall is the cybersecurity. So we did our curriculum writing this summer, and then we'll be continuing to kind of develop our curriculum for the following year for our middle school.
I'm sorry, so do we have a course in middle school now?
We do have 2 courses in the middle school now, but I'm making recommendations for how we can improve our course progression for middle school and even add in additional courses.
And the courses that we have in middle school are offered to all students, or are they the electives?
So they're electives. So one of them is a required elective for 7th grade and the other one is an optional one.
Thank you.
I think you'll see it on PowerPoint.
And I printed the presentation this time too, so you have it in front of you. So year one research study process is we researched the current computer science programs in surrounding and comparable districts. We explored instructional resources and materials to support student learning. So that included code.org, which we already use, and we were exploring some of their new courses that they have, CodeHS, and then we actually piloted a program called SkillStruck this year in the middle school. We held articulation meetings between middle school and high school computer science teachers, and we collected feedback from teachers, students, and parents. Also, this year, we actually sent 2 high school teachers to attend the 3-day cyber.org conference. So this conference was 3 days and it had tons of workshops that the teachers had an option to choose which ones they wanted to go to, which was very nice because a lot of the ones that they chose to go to were an intro to cybersecurity in preparation for our new courses. But when we have workshops that have so many options and you can really choose what aligns with what you're going to be teaching the following year, or something as a computer science teacher you want to expand on, you have the option of going to all different workshops. So in the future, we would like to get some of our middle school teachers to be able to attend this workshop as well.
How many?
We sent 2 this year. Yes. And I did find pictures on their website of the teachers, but other I like scrolled through 200 photos and I found them, but then there was other teachers in there. So I did not add it to the presentation, but this photo is from that presentation. I mean, that workshop. So the standards guiding the study are the 2020 New Jersey Student Learning Standards for Computer Science and Design Thinking. So these standards are intended to promote the development of curricula and learning experiences that reflect vision and mission of computer science and design thinking, foster greater coherence and appropriate progressions across grade bands, prioritize the important ideas and core processes that are central to computing and having lasting value beyond the classroom, and then reflect the habits of mind central to technology that lead to post-secondary success. So our current middle school program consists of a 7th grade required quarter course called Technology Literacy. And then we also have an optional quarter course elective called Multimedia 8. Our current course offerings in the high school, we have 6 computer science courses, including web development, cybersecurity, which will be beginning this school year, computer programming honors, AP principles of computer science, AP computer science A, and advanced topics of computer science. So we have 2 AP offerings, which is the most that College Board actually offers right now. And then we also have 2 high school computer science clubs. It's Girls Who Code and the Computer Club. So sorry.
It's
Go ahead.
cybersecurity. They have it listed in all 3. It's that same course, but it's any grade student can take it.
Yes. So what I tried to do is create the pathways. So it's a visually a little bit easier to understand for people, because a lot of times they were just in one pathway and it looks like there's only one pathway to take with computer science. Some of the courses have prerequisites, some of them don't. So a lot of times everyone's path might look very different in computer science. So right now for 9th graders, they had the option of web development or cybersecurity. And then for 10th graders, they would have the option of either web development, cybersecurity. If they didn't take that as a 9th grader, they can take computer programming honors or AP principles of computer science, which also doesn't have any prerequisites. And then as a senior, they also have the addition of AP computer science A and advanced topics of computer science.
Just a quick question. So the AP Computer Science A,
Mhm.
that's a follow-up to AP Principles of Computer Science? Is that like part 2?
So as long as you have computer science background, you could take computer science A.
Okay,
So out of the 2, the AP principles of computer science, there's no prerequisites. You can take it without having any prior exposure, but AP computer science A, you do. So,
Okay.
but a lot of times students won't have taken the principles. They might go right from computer programming honors right to the AP computer science A.
understood. I know at some point there was a small group of kids that were looking for the second part. Is this it? Is this it? Or you know what I'm talking about? There were a
Yeah.
bunch of kids that were looking for another class. I thought it was in AP Computer Science.
They were looking for was the advanced topics of computer science.
Ah,
And what
okay.
I'll talk about that with the enrollment, because I have on a diagram in here, you'll see the enrollment for that course
Okay,
and how some of the suggestions that we're making will actually hopefully make that possible in the future with more
Okay.
kids having access to that course by the
Okay.
time they get
I
to
just didn't
senior.
know if this was the same one as that. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
that's the course,
Appreciate it.
is the
Thank you.
advanced topics.
So can I ask you something on the AP Computer Science A? You said there are prerequisites?
They have to have computer science exposure, so they will have had to take either computer programming honors or web development. They just need prior computer science experience.
Can students demonstrate that by not in the Ridgewood High School, but if they took a summer program?
Yes, we have had students do that as well.
Okay.
So here's some course data that I pulled for the last 5 years for course enrollment. So what you'll see is the enrollment in the high school computer science elective courses has actually increased by 55% in the last 5 years. So in 2019, 2020, we had a total of 152 students enrolled in a computer science elective. And the anticipated enrollment for this upcoming school year is 235 students in one of our computer science electives. Also, enrollment in the in one of the AP computer science courses has also increased by 80% from 2020 to this upcoming school year. So in 2019, 2020, we had 99 students enrolled in one of the AP courses. And then this upcoming school year, we have 178 students enrolled.
So can you, I saw this chart earlier, and when I saw it, what struck out to me was the fact that the computer programming honors that dipped, while everything else has increased, particularly in the AP, which does not have a prerequisite, which is the AP Computer Science principles. Everything else follows what one would expect based on what you're saying.
Mhm.
What is going on with that computer programming honors specifically?
I think a little bit of that would be because more students are going into AP computer science principles as sophomores. So typically students would take the web development, like in the past before cybersecurity, web development would have been that freshman year course.
Right.
And students now can take the AP principles as a sophomore. So a lot of them try to get those AP courses in earlier so they can
Mhm.
actually go right to the AP principles. So as that's increasing, some of our other courses are naturally going to start to decrease. And then on this slide, I have the AP exam results for the last, I was only able to pull for the last 3 years because the 2 years before that were COVID years. We do not have data for that. So you'll see the AP computer science principles. For most years, we were 90% or above with a score of a 3 or higher. And then in AP computer science A, again, we were 90% or above with a 3 or higher. So collecting feedback, we collected feedback from our current computer science program from 6 through 12 students, parents, and guardians, as well as the computer science department. So feedback from students and parents for grades 6 through 8, students and parents would like to see more computer science offerings at the middle school level. And they feel there's a need for more coding courses beyond block-based programming, such as Python, JavaScript, and other programming languages. And then parents would also like to see an incorporation of security awareness and practical technology use. Feedback from students and parents in grades 9 through 12 feel that there is a strong desire for an increase in computer science elective options beyond what we're currently offering. There also were suggestions for evaluating and updating our current course offerings to address topics and skills relevant to today's world. This one was a big one. We had a lot of them, and it is true. I feel like with computer science, our department needs to be open to constantly looking at our curriculum because things are changing very quickly. And even if we're still covering similar topics, it might be the resources or the activities that we're doing to explore those topics.
So Ashley,
Yes.
I understand that point about there's a lot of interest, but and what you said dovetails with that in that there is interest, but the enrollments are not there for the non-APs.
Mhm.
So I don't know if one of the considerations is, for example, the computer programming honors, that was available in ninth grade, maybe that will open up the population who is interested.
Yes.
Because certainly, other than the APs, which has had the dramatic growth, web development and cybersecurity, they've actually decreased over time. The
Mhm.
growth has all been fueled by the AP. And I don't know if it's part of the whole desire to demonstrate AP in a transcript for college.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's feeding into it, but it's not for lack of offerings, it's the lack that it's being concentrated.
Yes, I agree. And I do have suggestions for how we can increase computer science, the computer programming honors for freshmen, which I'll describe in my pathways for when I introduce what I'm suggesting for middle school. I'll be able to share how that will impact the courses in the high school and their access to courses. And that I think kind of goes with even the second, both points 1 and 2 kind of go together. We have to reevaluate our courses. Is web development as it's decreasing, is that still the course we want to offer? Is that a curriculum we want to reevaluate and maybe offer something that might be more relevant to today in what students are interested in? And then also gaining more access as for freshmen for the computer programming honors.
Yeah, and then there's no AI, for example. I know that that's a
Yes.
very hot topic or
Mhm.
very, very, current desire that may not, as it gets develops. But I'm saying,
Yes.
You're right. that
Mhm.
there-
And parents have suggestions about increasing after-school computer science clubs and creating opportunities for students to participate in computer science internships. So summary of the feedback from staff is they feel that there is a need for improving the middle school computer science program to include mandatory elective courses. They feel middle school students should have opportunities for more physical computing to provide more meaningful learning experiences by creating connections between abstract ideas of coding and tangible outcomes. And teachers expressed appreciation and desire for continued collaboration between both middle schools and high schools and high school. High school teachers also would like to see additional computer science electives offered, including the advanced topics, which we haven't been able to run in a few years, as well as new courses in the future. So recommendations for middle school for 2024 to 2028, I'm recommending the continued collaboration between middle school teachers to create the alignment and the equity between the middle schools. I'm to propose a new computer science course pathway for grades 6 through 8, which I will discuss on the next slide. And then consider the purchase of microbit kits, which actually will align with one of the courses I'm recommending for the middle school. So the microbits are little pocket-sized computers that students will be able to do programming on the computer, and then the microbits will respond to whatever they're designing. So I actually had the opportunity to observe one of those lessons, and the students enjoyed it. And it was you could differentiate very easily. So the students were working in pairs, and some of them, so a microbit is like this little computer that has little lights on it, and you can tell it what to do from your computer. So some students were creating like a little story. They had a dog walking, and then a person, a home, and a heart. And then another pair actually did rock, paper, scissors with it. And they had set it that they were able to shake the microbit, and when it stopped, it would land on one of those, and they can actually play from microbit to microbit, or they can play from microbit to another student. So the students absolutely loved the lesson. So you can see that there's a lot they can do with it, especially in a quarter course. Another recommendation is to plan a computer science night for elementary and middle school students. So this would be to promote engagement and excitement about computer science for students before they get to middle school or before they get to high school. And as well as continue to research and evaluate potential course options for curriculum in the middle school. So here is my current recommendation for the middle school course pathways. And so these are just the current recommendations. The final courses would be presented at the November board curriculum meeting. But what we're recommending is a required quarter course for computer science explorations in 6th grade. So what this course would cover is the JavaScript, is introducing students to what careers are in computer science, as well as the basics of programming. Then another required course for 7th grade students, which would be more of that physical computing with microbits. And then an optional quarter course elective on coding and game design with Python. So we based the required and the optional based on what we know is possible with the middle school schedule. So where because they can only fit so much into their schedule. So we do know we can fit in a required course for sixth grade and seventh grade, but we weren't able to do it for eighth grade. So that's where it becomes two pathways, which I'll show you on the next slide. Okay. Why don't, okay. So how would the pathways impact computer science access in high school? So there would be two pathways. There would be the pathway of the students taking just the required courses for sixth and seventh grade. And if they don't take that optional course in eighth grade, their options for ninth grade would be web development and cybersecurity. The second pathway are students take those two required courses and then they choose to take that optional elective in eighth grade for with Python, for the game design with Python, and then that would gain access for computer programming honors, which would increase it. So in the past few years, computer programming honors only had about 4 freshmen in it. So once we create this pathway, that's gonna increase, I think.
Again, with the computer programming honors, if there are students who take courses outside of school or in the summer, they can demonstrate, do they test into computer programming honors?
They
or-
demonstrate. So that's how in the past we've had those like 4 students who have gotten into that program. It's students who had actually gone out of district to take a course or do a summer program. And that's how they were able to gain access into computer programming honors. And we wanted to design it in a way that you shouldn't have to go out of district. You should have access to these courses based on the curriculum that we're offering here. But yes, if they do not take it, it doesn't fit in their schedule, they want to take another elective, they can always do the same thing we've done in the past if they took a course somewhere else. Recommendations for high school is continue to research and evaluate potential course options for high school students. We have our cybersecurity course starting for 2024-2025 school year. Consider a proposal for data science for 25-26, which is a nice course for aligning the math and the computer science together, and then the potential for an advanced cybersecurity 2 course in the future. And all of this will depend on, again, like we mentioned earlier, the numbers and the courses that we're offering, making sure that we can run courses. Research dual enrollment opportunities for eligible computer science courses, evaluate and adapt course offerings from 6 through 12 vertical alignment of essential computer science skills. Increase the opportunity for computer science related field trips and guest speakers. Develop a high school computer science academy. So this is something we've started laying out. We do not have it finalized, but we would hope to have it started by next year, but if not next year, the following year. Continue to support teachers participating in the cyber.org conference and other beneficial professional development opportunities. So something I wanted to share as well is we do want to increase our outreach. So we had talked about doing a computer science night of getting students excited about computer science before they get to the high school. We had the Girls Who Code visit Google for a field trip last year. I would like to expand that beyond just the Girls Who Code program and have even just people who are students who are in the classes be able to take these field trips, but the students were able to meet with software engineers who worked on speech recognition and YouTube and learned about careers in technology. The Girls Who Code last year, and we are planning it again for this year, actually visited the middle schools for the 7th and 8th grade, and they were able to meet with those classes, and they were the ones doing the microbit activities with them. And they're doing that to get them excited about computer science. They also did a whole presentation about the computer science offerings in the high school too. So it was really great for 8th graders. Before we did it in November last year, we would like to do it in November again, but those 8th graders to see what's available to them before they go for their course selections, I believe in January or February. So a summary of our major recommendations would be to propose the new computer science course pathways for middle school, increase collaboration with teachers between middle school and high schools to support the vertical articulation of the computer science program, focus on computer science exposure outside of the classroom, including field trips, guest speakers, and dual enrollment opportunities, as well as develop a high school computer science academy.
Thank you, Ashley, for the few comments. First of all, thank you. Great job. I think this is definitely on the right path. I would say, you know, this is a very interesting and important department or focus area because this is one of the largest growing fields coming up in our future. So I do have some just thoughts and suggestions to share. And I think you alluded to this. I mean, the world is changing so much where I think if we can get our teachers in the mindset that actually every year we should be looking, because right now we have the 5-year right model here, and that might be fine for math or ELA or whatever, but with computer science, it's really not. I mean, the world is so different, 5 years. And you alluded to it here. I would just say like, we can reevaluate course offerings every year. That will be very, very important.
Yes.
Some thoughts that come to me is just looking at the course enrollments and even the nature of the courses. Maybe it makes sense to axe some and add more exciting ones, like web development is a little bit of an older topic. It's not as popular. You can actually see the enrollment has gone down in that one. If people don't see value in the programming honors, and maybe they're just going right into AP because they're saying, hey, if I'm going to take a computer programming class anyway, why not get AP credit for it? Maybe we ask that one as well. And then there are a lot of other topics that we're not covering, right? AI, which is, could be an intro to AI. And AI is really a different computer programming type approach anyway. Or you alluded to as well, data science or data transfer, ETL. And then there's a whole other world of just cloud computing as well, right? That's the world of Amazon, Google. And so there's a lot of topics that I think
Yeah,
are
there's a lot you can do. And especially as we grow the middle school program and students are coming in with so much more exposure to computer science. And I feel like our courses in the high school are going to become more advanced and more dynamic because we will know that all of these students have had 2 years of electives for computer science, and some of them will be on the 3-year electives of computer science. So as we start every year, I agree, we have to look at our curriculum, whether the course stays the name of the course and we shift some of our units, but we have to keep evaluating it because it's going so quickly, you can hardly keep up with it. But I will say we have a lot of very enthusiastic computer science teachers, and we are getting another new one this year for the middle school. So we're very excited with her background with computer science as well.
Thank you.
I would just say, in addition to, as you reevaluate the courses, I'm just thinking broadly in terms of what the college application process is like. There is a desire to have as many APs as possible for the most competitive schools. So I don't know, like I said, I don't know if that's feeding into the enrollment numbers that you're seeing. It could be the pathway wasn't so transparent, and now you're creating a much more concrete pathway. So just the thought that maybe as you look at it, it could be that if you just simply rename computer programming to AP, I bet you your enrollment will be there. I mean, it's something like that. So I just really want to be mindful of the AP load and providing that opportunity for all the students. And the second thing is as you mentioned, I just want that policy to be very publicly stated in terms of, if you don't see it on the paper in terms of access, that you may be able to demonstrate aptitude for that entry into a class, even if you have not taken the prerequisite. It sounds like there were certainly some households that were aware of that policy, but I do think that for especially people who are entering, the newer students, they may not realize that actually that, maybe it's an asterisk, as long as you can demonstrate you
That's a
can
great
opt
point.
into X, Y, and Z. Because
Yeah, that's a really important point because
Yeah.
it's, if we have incoming students or even students in middle school that maybe didn't even know or care and now
Right.
want to take this in high school, that's the downside or the danger of the pathways. I agree with you, pathways are important, but the downside is that it also creates a lot of prerequisites that students will assume are hard-coded. I can't get, so too bad I can't take this class now. And so you might start to limit some students.
Yes,
then.
I
So
agree.
somehow we just have to message it,
Yeah.
that
There's a way to.
exceptions can be provided or recommended prerequisites or
Right,
whatever.
recommended.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the option to demonstrate testing or whatever, that there's a way to get into it, even if it's not explicitly
Yes.
stated.
And even just speaking with the guidance counselors,
Oh,
they're very aware
absolutely.
too, because they meet with the students as they're building their schedule. So I will put on my calendar to meet with them annually too. So
It's
they're
because
aware. Yeah.
certain households, I mean, certain parents, maybe it's their second or third child, so they know, oh, you know what? I know this may say that in the handbook, but I think I can talk to X, Y, and Z. Not everyone's going to be that comfortable to do that.
Yes, no, I see it in the math world too. A lot of times when you had a child that went through the program, you're aware of a lot more than a new parent. And so I've been trying to do that on the math side. So I do agree with you. It has to be done on this side as well.
One more just thought as well. You also, you captured it in the feedback from the middle school parents, but so a lot of this is career readiness and future, but then there's another, I think, element that's important for the world of computer science, which is like just basic life skills awareness. My wife and I chat sometimes that in a way, our generation is actually more tech aware than our children because we grew up in the world of understanding what is a CPU, what is RAM, right? What is an IP address? What is a MAC address? Basic security. What is the internet? How does the internet really work? Actually, these kids actually don't have that. They just go on their phone, they click, and everything is there. But some of those skills are important because when you need to understand privacy or your privacy settings on Insta or what is TikTok and everything you put out there is permanent when it goes to the, anyone can dig it up, right? What is caching or web history when someone researches you when you're applying for a job? I mean, there's so many like basics of tech and IT that they're not aware of. That's just going to be good for their mental health and their future.
Yes, and I feel like that would probably need to be embedded into every single course. And they do digital citizenship in 6th grade, but again, it's always changing and growing too. And there's new things you need to learn about it. So it does need to be embedded yearly as well.
I don't know why you would wait until 6th grade. As soon as the kids have their hands on a Chromebook, they should be aware of digital citizenship. You're arming them with something that could, yeah. So I would do it in tandem with the distribution of these tools.
What grade, do we know what grade they get?
So we
Chromebooks?
give Chromebooks in elementary, but email is not available until 6th grade. Yeah, the web browser is. Yeah.
You can't wait for just the email to be assigned to a student. I think once you give a Chromebook, I think as a district, we have a responsibility to teach responsible usage and I love that word, digital citizenship. Just awareness of the downfalls as well as of using.
So for me, from my side, first of all, thank you for a great presentation. I don't have any critiques. I just have few pointers to add to your thought process from, and you may have already, like, for example, when you were making the presentation, I was thinking that students who are going to go for RAP or AMSTUD, they may not be able to take this course, and there's a competitive spirit to go into an academy. And you already mentioned that you are thinking of an academy, so you probably are already thinking about most of the things that I'm going to say. First is, I think we should have hired you 25 years ago in this district. So with the math and computer science, all the changes that you're bringing in the district, so some of these are way overdue. So thank you for all of your hard work on that. So academy would be important because otherwise the students may be inclined to opt for or compete for one of the academies. And once you get into those, then you don't have a room for elective. So when I talk about room for elective, a lot of high schools in New Jersey offer 8 periods or 8 classes, and I think we have 7 classes. Am I correct there? Yeah, so we have to have a free, so we have only 7 classes. And most of the colleges, when you talk to college counselors, they want to see 5 classes all 4 years, which is your English, your foreign language, your math, social studies, and a science class. So those 5 are, they want to see those 5 throughout all 4 years as consistency. So, and I think in 9th grade, you're showing some of the courses on 9th grade, but I don't remember if the students have an option to take electives in 9th grade. I think 9th grade is pretty much, isn't it pretty much set, 9th grade?
No, you would know better than me, but don't they at least have one elective?
I know that they do because we do
What?
have 9th graders in our.
I remember my daughter taking electives.
Yes.
You know.
Okay.
But they are limited by the other programs.
Yeah,
that
they're
part of.
limited.
Yes.
So then what happens is when they like to take band or any other activities, then they also start getting limited on the electives. And so we have 2 electives. And with those 2 electives, we have a lot of good course offerings. So students are always, they want to take more, but we have too many good offerings in arts and sciences, and now you're adding computer science also. So this will need strong guidance for these students to what to take. And I think we'll have to come up with some sort of goals that there can be 3 different goals for as a district. One is students who want to make a career in computer science and go to colleges in computer science. So we have, if we are giving them half-baked computer science courses, they may not be able to compete with other students because that's one of the most competitive college majors. So those students who really want to target for computer science major, they may need all the opportunities. Then we probably need a basic that every student that is graduating from our schools need to know minimum math, minimum English, minimum a third language, and some sort of computer science. They should not go blind about computer science, that everybody needs some computer science. And then I think some students are also these days thinking about going into a career after 12th grade. They may not want to go to college.
Mhm.
That's a newer trend. So can there be some courses that are specific to Salesforce, ServiceNow, those type of things that people can get some enough knowledge on computer science that they can go and work in industry or something. So I don't know what would be the goals,
Mhm.
but we have, as a district, we need, what is our goal? Why are we teaching these? Are we doing for literacy for everybody or towards computer science major, like awareness, computer science major, or we are making them ready for
Mhm.
the workforce after 12th grade? Um, I think somehow we'll have to figure that out, that how does that fit with other courses if somebody, like the whole guidance and 7 periods. And as Anju said, anywhere where there's AP, students will probably take those. So those 2 courses, everybody is going to
Yes.
want to take it if
Mhm.
they are going for college major for computer science, because those APs look good on their resume. And so I wouldn't focus on expanding to too many things. If we are just doing the basics of computer science, like Mahmood said, that the basics, everybody should know those basics. So you read one of the feedbacks about Python and Java being block programming languages and old fashioned, but people still need to know those.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
people need to know. So if we do a good job in the basics and make them good computer science person for the what we are teaching instead of trying to teach them too many things, and they go solid on those and generate interest in those, I think we'll do a good job. But again, these are all just my
No,
random
I think
thoughts.
there, as you were speaking, I was like, I should put him on the conversation
Yeah.
for the academy, but
Yeah, these are just my random thoughts. You're already doing amazing
Yes.
job, and again, you should have been here 25 years ago.
thank you. No, I appreciate that. And then even for the certification, we would like to have some courses that align with students being able to have the knowledge that they can take a certification test to be certified, because some students are going, one, it might look good for colleges as well, and 2, some students might go right into that career path as well.
Given everything we've just discussed, it's a good thing that you've got the 4 years, right, to really build it out.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate everything that you've said and done today. So I wanted to thank you for that. And, just kind of to echo, I agree that, and on the one hand, you need to be looking at it, it almost feels like every 3 months, right? Because
Mhm.
something's always changing. And on the other hand, the overarching goals of the program will probably, I would think, might take more than a year or something just to really get to where we want to be.
Mhm.
But you've done an amazing amount of work in a short period of time between this and everything you've done on math. Wow. So
Thank you.
thank you. I just
Thank
want to
you.
thank you very much for everything.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, this really doesn't go into effect, some of your courses in the middle school until next year, since you're
Yes, it will take time.
bringing
because-
them, right?
Yeah, we want to finalize what the curriculum is going to be like, but we also want to make sure our teachers are prepared to teach them. So to have a teacher take on 3 new courses that are in computer science next year would be a lot on them. So what we need to do is, once we finalize our curriculum, start deciding which professional development we can start preparing them for this year to hopefully be able to implement maybe 2 of those courses next year, to not overload them and allow them the opportunity to be able to really implement the course 100% and really feeling confident to do so. So it will take time. And like they were saying, it's going to take a few years to kind of get everything into alignment with how we need it to be. And then we'll have to reevaluate it again anyway. But it's going to take a few years for the proposals.
Yeah, it seems like a 5-year cycle is long for this
Mhm.
particular subject. On your, have you had the opportunity to look at other schools and what they're offering, other high-performing
Yes.
districts and particularly your tech schools?
So a lot, yeah, I did look at some tech schools and that's where I got the certification idea because some of them have a computer science academy.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, then we can look into something like that. So I looked into some tech schools that offer a computer science academy. I also was looking at Ramsey. They have a great computer science program for 6 through 8. They have a game design, they have coding. So I tried to look into those comparable schools that I feel like have a strong computer science program as well as the tech schools to see what we can offer that would make our students stand out on a transcript too. And the point that was made about how the courses are named is important too, because that's all they're seeing. We can't expect them to go read the course description. So we have to really be strategic with how we're naming our courses as well.
Right. And are you aware of what colleges or universities would accept a dual enrollment? And so you would get college credit?
So I looked into a few to try to get it for the cybersecurity because they do have cybersecurity in college. However, it's much more advanced cybersecurity because a lot of the schools they're accredited schools for computer science. So
Yeah.
you have to meet certain expectations for their courses. So if we were able to eventually have a cybersecurity too, that course might align with something that would be taken by the college. But as we develop our courses, like the data science course, potentially, I have to research to see which schools are offering that, but that could potentially be a college course. But so it's really looking into the colleges, which ones are accredited programs, because they're going to be a little bit more challenging to get into with computer science courses.
And as you build an extracurricular opportunities, I know the high schools just begun to do the internships at the end of the year for seniors into programming. Might that be an avenue too that we could look at in terms of any kind of computer work?
Yes, no, I would really like to get some internships in there. And I was planning on reaching out to the Alumni Association to see if there was some connections I could make with maybe people that are working in the computer science field to either come in for our guest speakers, to invite our students to come see their company or how computer science fits in, and either potentially some internships similar to how the other academy works.
Just as a helpful hint, so the president of the Alumni Association is the inventor of Cohort, which is Group Spot, which all the HSAs use. And last year, he did have
Yeah.
a student intern
Okay,
for him, and that's his whole world.
okay, that's
So
great.
Mark
Yeah.
Kosick. So I
Okay.
would most definitely contact him because I'm sure he'd be happy to extend the opportunity more than once.
Yeah, that was
And-
really
Right,
successful.
it was incredibly successful
That's
for the
exciting.
student and for him.
Yes.
Yeah, as a
Mhm.
matter of fact, he hired the student for the summer
Wow,
after it
okay.
was that successful, so.
And for computer science, you would not have trouble in this community. If you send one email to our
Yeah.
parents,
Okay.
there are tons of parents who are in the computer science industry in Ridgewood, and they would definitely step up for anything that you need.
Okay.
Some support.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much.
you.
This
Is
is
this
exciting.
presentation available anywhere online? that
Yes,
we can share?
Christine's gonna post it on the website.
Okay.
She's on. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Anembo. And credit to you, credit to your team also. I know a lot of teachers worked on that as well. So credit to all of those folks. We're really excited for the way you're taking us very in some ways catching up, but in many other ways also like really leading our kids in the future well, preparing our kids well for this new world that we're in. Our next presentation is from Ms. Christine Corliss. Mrs. Corliss is our Public Information Officer and Special Projects Manager, and she is here to give the board a little walkthrough and the public a little walkthrough of the new website. She also accompanied me at my superintendent coffee, which was held last Thursday, where we more or less did the same presentation, but we figured since we were giving it out to the public, we would also give it out to the board, and we welcome your feedback and insights.
Welcome.
Thank
So
you. Hello.
just, I just want to say that, you know, we talked about the new website, probably last November, December. And so it was important, I thought, to, bring it forward again for the board to see, but also for the public to see and to have that presentation online. So thank you.
Thank you. Not going on. Yep, there we go. First, I actually do want to thank everybody. So I've only been with the district about a year and a half. Hard to believe it's only been a year and a half. I don't mean that negative. It just seems like I've been here a lot longer. And right out of the gate, it was one of the things I looked at was the website. And I want to thank you because not knowing me, the administration, the board, actually the whole school community put their trust in the fact that here comes this person to change a website that had been in place for over a decade. It's now was in place for 12 years. So way overdue for a website cleanup. It was a huge job. But without the support of everybody, it would have been nearly impossible. So thank you first. I also do want to send a shout out. I was lucky enough to have a student at the high school, Mark DeWee, I want to give him a shout out, who volunteered because he wanted to learn how to do this. And he said, can I come work for you? I said, I can't pay you. He said, I don't care. So he was great with all of especially the tedious tasks of checking hyperlinks and uploading photos. And I would create a template and he would go through and make sure the template carried through. So I do want to thank him as well, because he really did make it possible for us to launch before the start of school. So always great to have those talented students. And he already asked if he could come back next year. So I told him yes. So I guess some of the first big questions are, why did we need to do this? Other than the fact that it was old. Old isn't always a bad thing, but in website design, it kind of is. So on top of just wanting to rebrand and refresh and make things look cleaner, crisper, more modern, we were very out of ADA compliance, which I had mentioned in the past. And with Governor Murphy's ordinance of January of 2021, we really needed to get our website as much compliant as we could. The ordinance states that we have to be 80% or more compliant per WCAG 2.2. Right now we're at 95. We'll see how that goes. But I'm still putting in code to track it and to monitor on a daily basis, but we've got a really good start. And I will say that 5% is because we did have to carry over some documents, and that's what we kind of need to work on next, is the actual PDF kind of attachments and such that we're working with. The other thing is user friendliness, and that's both on the end user, our community side, as well as our staff side. So when I did some research into the initial site, and I did it as a person who was actually coming to join the district, I know when I was interviewed, they said, okay, what do you think of our website? And I said, well, at the risk of you not hiring me, it's terrible. So it was hard to find things. There were very long menus. There were things hidden. Rule of thumb for clicks on a website is you never go more than 3 deep. Sometimes it's hard to avoid that, but you really try not to go more than 3 deep. We were going in some cases like 10 deep. I'm not even exaggerating. And then again, the menus were just so cumbersome. And also on the staff side, things weren't being updated regularly because it was difficult for them to update it. It was a very outdated system. It wasn't user friendly. So one of the reasons we did pick the platform we picked is it's easy for them to update. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that as we go through. The other thing is, we know apps are crucial. The app for the old site, it was old. It was outdated. It really wasn't helpful. The new app, which I'm going to show you a little bit more on later, is much more user-friendly. I was able to customize it to include things like Skyward, which is one of the key things we know parents go and look for. I'm working with Pomptonian to every month or week, depending. I'm kind of letting them look at that right now. They're going to be actually entering the lunch data. So it'll be actually right on the app, so you know what you're getting to eat that day. So much easier to use, compatible app that has the calendar, the events, etc. And then finally, just content management. And that's things like PDFs and attachments. And so my rule of thumb with a website is to truly try to avoid attachments where you can. The rule of thumb should be, it should be on the screen. And that's both to minimize clicks as well as just to make maintaining it easier. If it's a huge document, like a program of studies, that's not going to work as easy. But when it's something like, here's your busing transportation guidelines, or here's how to access Skyward, there's no reason for that to be a PDF. We just put it right on the screen. So with this new website, we moved a lot more right onto the website to get rid of some of those extra clicks and documents that people had to look at. So there were two sides that I had to weigh when designing the website. On the one side, we wanted to use our colors, we wanted to use our logos, we wanted it to reflect our style and our branding and to look good, right? Because if it doesn't look good, kind of makes you not feel so good at the end of the day, right? And the other side was the ADA compliance. So that included things like our newly adopted district font. There are a couple, but the primary one is Poppins. The whole district in terms of the website and in terms of our new letterheads, in terms of everything we're sending out is for the most part, we're still transitioning a few things, but we're moving towards Poppins. The reason for Poppins is similar to Montserrat and Verdana. It's very ADA compatible, but it also has proper letter recognition. So things like your little a are written correctly. So that's why we chose Poppins, so that the letter, like if you look at the small a in readability, it's written like an A without the curly Q thing on the top. Point size, you can't go less
What are
than-
we now? What were we?
We were actually, I changed us last year to Montserrat and Verdana, which are also still compatible.
Yeah,
In the past, they were using
Times Roman.
all different things. Times New Roman, Arial. My worst fear, Comic Sans, which I've told everybody is a bad word and to cross it out. But it's a common one among elementary. They love that Comic Sans. So we're still fighting the fight, but we'll get there. Point size can't be less than 12 pixels. This size automatically, no matter who posts it, the website will not allow you to go less than 12 pixels. So that, some people get a little frustrated by that, but it keeps it ADA compliant. The contrast has to be a 4.5:1 at minimum. That depends a little bit on your point size. So there's also a limitation of colors. You're not going to see pinks and purples unless it's super dark. We've limited that they can only use the branded district colors on the website. Again, I'm not a big fan with the kindergarten teachers right now, but they'll get used to it. And then readability order, which is probably the hardest thing with compliance, is that a way a screen reader reads on a screen is not always the way you might think it would read. So you have to make sure that 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3 is 3 in terms of order. So just because something looks aesthetically better in a certain configuration doesn't mean it's readable. So this website will also help us prevent readability errors for screen readers. So one of the main things when I started to organize the information is I wanted it to be easy for staff to find what they needed, students to find what they needed, and families to find what they needed. And I wanted it to be consistent across schools and across levels, meaning elementary to middle to high. So, and I'll show you this when we go to a live, but the staff pages, staff resources, student resources, and family resources, the top halves of those pages are exactly the same every school, every level of school. By that, I mean those have access to your Atlas Rubicon, to your master's library, to your CSI for staff in terms where they can see paychecks. So all of the information district-wide is in the same place on that main page for those 3 groups. The other place they'll all find the information, again, it's the same district-wide, is when you click on menu, which is I call it the hamburger icon. It's the kind of the industry word for it, the 3 lines. You'll get to this bottom section of the page. Now this happens to be the main page, so it has a little bit more in it, but all of the schools under our district have About Us. They all have academics. They all have the resources repeated down at the bottom. They have community. And what you can't see here is there's actually, it's hidden behind my drop down, I apologize, is a virtual backpack. So that's something we moved to because all of the schools were getting flyers from the community and you had 12 people sending out the exact same flyer and posting the exact same flyer. With the design of the new website, I can go in and I update those 3 resource pages and push it out to all 12 places so we don't have a duplication of effort. I do the same with the virtual backpack. I load the flyers onto that page and it goes to all 12 schools at the same time, but I can pick and choose. So Alpha Best wouldn't be at the high school, but I can post it to all the schools where it would be appropriate. Same for other age appropriate things. So I can pick out of the 12 different landing sites because we made Steps a school with the new website. It's an official school. I pick where the flyers go, and every school's e-news now has a link that goes to the virtual backpack from the e-news. So everybody's getting the same information at the same time. Related to that, though it's different from the website, every school is now sending out, every school that sends an e-news, which is now sending it out on the same day at the same time, Tuesdays, 1 p.m. And that's for equity reasons. We had a couple situations since I've been here where there were registrations and maybe it was limited. Well, the school that got their registration emails out first filled up the registrations and the other schools didn't get a chance. By everybody getting it at the same time, at least we level the playing field a little bit. So it's a combined HSA and school e-news that goes out on Tuesdays at 1. And then reminders and such go out on the news and live feeds and group spot if it's HSA. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that as we move forward. So for our staff, these are the 2 primary things that I'm asking every school to update themselves. That being said, I can also push out the updates. So what you see here, the September 3rd being the first day of school, the introduction of Richard Matthews, the superintendent coffees, and the distinguished alumni, those were all things that I posted. And then I pushed them out to all the schools. And I did that for them for the start of school. There's even more, summer reading, school supplies, etc. I did that so that when the secretaries who are primarily responsible for this came in, they wouldn't be looking at this blank screen and panicking a little that it was new. So I got them all started. I've met with most of them one-on-one, as well as they've had 2 virtual trainings. Super simple for them to update. I did send out a little reminder today to say, don't forget, we got to do news and live feed. So the news is things that might be happening a week, 2 weeks, maybe even longer out in the future, and you leave it there for a while. Your live feed would be a reminder. So an example would be, say it's Spirit Week at the elementary schools. On the left-hand side, it might say Spirit Week is, and the week it is, and maybe have the whole week's activities loaded. On the right hand of the live feed, the secretaries could say, and they can schedule this ahead of time, any of this. They can say, don't forget today's Cowboy Day. Don't forget tomorrow's Photo Day. So it's little reminders in the live feed that bring that maybe that older information that got hidden or stale on the left and bring it more current on the right. They can also, from these 2 feeds, either one, they can also post to their districts, their schools' social media accounts. Their social media accounts are linked. So with one press of the button, they can go to either one of these plus social media, and they actually can do one or both of these, social media and a communication out via email and or text. So it's really simplifying the number of steps they do. It's simplifying the amount of work and repetition to make their lives as easy as possible. So some of the main changes that I did do on the website that are kind of outside of the template is I wanted to make it more warm, more inviting, more personal, and that's of course through pictures. So on sites, especially this might actually be from our HR site, our human resources pages, our athletics pages, all have kind of these banners at the top. Our department pages have a different kind of design, but they have a picture with the department information. So we really looked at icons, images, videos to warm it up and make it more personal. The creation of an information hub, and that's what I tend to call a website. To me, a website is your information hub. So if a communication goes out and a parent can't find it in their email, that information should reside on the website so that you don't have to worry about, oh no, I lost this. Everything should be here. It acts as your backup. It acts as your storage to remind people of what's coming up. We talked about the backpack, and then we did talk about the page designs. I incorporated a lot of buttons and menus, and I'll show you the BOE page and or the athletics page. On the previous site, as an example, the BOE had 13 separate hyperlinks, different icons, different pages, different menu options. You are now one icon. And when you press on that one, there are about 10 buttons that then bring you to the webcast, the meeting minutes, anything else that's board related. So we've kind of made it very simple for people. They know it's something related to the BOE. They find it all in one place. We did the same thing with athletics, making a landing page that then has links to the schedule, the spirit store, etc. Now, hopefully this is going to work. During the superintendent coffee, some people had trouble hearing it, but we'll try it and see if it goes. It just gives you a nice overview of the app, and we'll cross our fingers.
Introducing the brand new app for Ridgewood Public Schools. It's everything Ridgewood Public Schools in your pocket. This is the home screen. Tap the 3 horizontal lines in the bottom left to see all the menu items. To turn on push notifications, tap Settings, select Notification Preferences, and allow notifications. Tap Subscriptions to subscribe to your school. The Events section shows a list of events throughout the school. You can use this button to add an event to your calendar, or tap here to share the event with friends and family. The feed is where you'll find updates from administration about what's going on throughout the school. Search Ridgewood Public Schools, New Jersey in the App Store or Play Store to explore the app for yourself. It's everything Ridgewood Public Schools in your pocket.
So you can see it's got a lot of things that are very customizable. So if you're a parent with a student in 3 different schools, you can pick just those 3 schools and see the information. And you can do this on the website as well, just for those 3 schools, but it's nice when it's on your phone and you can't remember what time something is or where it is. The one thing when I did this video with them, we didn't have Skyward on the app yet. It is now the last button on there as well. And we know that's a very common parent. And I can continue to customize it if we find that parents are saying, I wish this was on it. It's something I can continue to refine and improve.
Quick question. So I have the old Ridgewood Village School District app on my phone. Do I have to delete that and get a new one, or will it
Delete
be
that and get a
updated?
new one. Yeah, it's
Okay,
totally
yeah,
new.
that was, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
because we also, as I think everybody knows, we changed our domain name at the same time.
Yeah, okay.
The technology department, because we were going to a new website, said it's the perfect time for us to change our very long, people complain about domain names. So they put out, I want to say we started with about 20 available domain names, which it was really hard because there are so many R's. There's Ramapo, there's Ramsey, there's Riverdale, so we did have a hard time identifying available domain names, but we put it out to vote. And that's how we got the rpsnj.us. Sorry about that.
It-
To the next screen. All right, so I did want to give a little bit of a live tour just to show you guys some of what I talked about. I do have a note at the top asking people just to be patient with me as I continue to refine things. The old website is still up through December 1st. Did that for 2 reasons. One, we knew people would still be going there. And since we did have the 2 domains, it made it easy for us to do it. We knew they would still be going there. We wanted to be able to redirect them here. So there is an alert on the old one. And 2, if there was something that, because this site was just massive to migrate, it's definitely the biggest site I've ever done. I wanted to make sure that if somebody said, I don't see this, that I had a resource to easily pull it and move it if we hadn't. So for the next few months, we'll just be making sure that nothing's been missed. I do want to point out one of the little customizations I did. You can see over here, these little finger tabs. There's actually 5 of them, but it's cutting off, I guess, because of the transference. We put 5 things there that we thought, and this was committee, everything was committee decided, which was great. We had a great committee of people. Things that anybody would need, whether you were a current Ridgewood family or not. So about us was, generic information, student registration, there's an alumni tab there. And I am working with alumni to build that up. We have a whole big alumni page now, which is really nice. And I just got called by 2 more years that they're planning events and could they get on our page? So I know people are looking, which is great. The pictures are, right now, they're all mine. And the primary reason is, A, I like a kind of certain look, but B, phone images don't always transfer well. So I go around with the bigger camera and we'll continue to do that to update images throughout the year. Here's the Board of Ed icon that I mentioned it's on every page. It looks the same on every page. And everything Board of Ed related is on this one page. So no matter what people are looking for that's related to the Board of Ed, it's a series of buttons and then all of your contact information. So real simple to use, real simple to find without having to wonder which Board of Ed button to press on the home page or on some submenus. The resources pages that I mentioned are all, I've went to a very icon, graphical type of look. So these are the primary icons that were either on the old page or that they asked me to add. This whole part that you see here is on every single school's student page. If you were to go to another school, and we can do that from the school button up here, I'll just show you. I know for a fact we've done some stuff at George Washington. If we go to the same tab on theirs, you'll see exactly the same. So that helps people, exactly the same. But then we have information that's specific to GW. So they can continue to add additional buttons to the bottom. And or we can move those to the top. We're kind of waiting to see how that plays out, but we can put the school specific information at the bottom or at the top, and then the other part of the information will be controlled from one main central location. One of the other things that we didn't have on the old site that is actually required by law is that the HIB information should be on every school's landing page. We've now added that by school. So when you click this, you will get to that specific school's anti-bullying specialist and information. And then the home page is our district coordinator, which currently is Mr. Friedman, but will be changing soon. What's the difference? The two, I'm sorry. Oh, you know what? This one should say facts. That's my fault. It should say facts.
But so the irony, I actually have a fax machine, so I appreciate that, but,
I think this is
It's
one of
like
the only
lots of
schools that has
faxing
one. I
to
was
you.
like, facts,
Right.
who's faxing?
I know,
But they
exactly.
said they do, so.
so, but can the phone be the active link instead of the fax? Because
Yes.
right now it looks like.
I can make it that. Their template actually has it so it's not an active link. So you can kind of tell when I've customized something. So I made the fax an active link, but yeah, they can both be active links.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I think between the fax and the phone.
Yeah,
the
and
phone
it should
be
say
the active-
fax. So yeah, absolutely. The other section I just wanted to show is the other one I had shared, which was the R school, because this is the other primary area. And we made sure so that both middle schools look exactly the same. All elementaries look exactly the same. And of course, the high school's its own, so it could have a little bit of difference, but we still kept the same information in the same area. So when people click on Our School About Us, these icons at the top are fairly similar, if not identical, across schools. So you know where to find your school supply lists. You know where to find your mission and vision. You know where to find the student handbooks. So this way, there's no confusion when you're going from school to school, level to level. And then they all have a little bit about the school with a picture and then some of the specific information. So what's next? I'd like to say I'm close to done, but I know I'm not. And as we all know, websites are never ending as well if you really maintain them. So I have to continue the cleanup and the updates. Every day I find just something small, maybe a hyperlink didn't carry over, or it's still linked to the old site. So we're going through page by page, and I have a lot of people now to help me because everybody's starting to come back. So that's been great. We're continuing to improve the aesthetics. I'll be adding more video, more icon-based, more image-based links and such. And I just had a meeting this morning to finalize that we'll be incorporating a chat bot onto the website, working with a local small group. They're indexing our system as we speak. So this will help, especially because it's a new website. When you come to our new website in the bottom right, not sure if it's going to be an animated R or just the R. We're playing with both right now. You can ask it almost any question of where do I find this? I can't find it, and it will direct you to that exact page and or just answer your question depending on what you ask. So we think that because it's a new website and because it's so different, that'll be very helpful for people to help them get used to the site. And then we can reevaluate next year if it's something we really want to keep, or, once people get familiar, we don't need it. But I did look at some other districts that are using it, and the results have been really positive. The other thing that comes with this chatbot is a survey tool. So we can even use it to survey about certain pages or to survey about the website in general. However, we already do have planned a thought exchange somewhere between 3 and 6 months out. We're going to kind of see where we are, but we're definitely going to do one to get some feedback from the community on the new website.
So can I ask you two questions? The first is on the chatbot. What I've seen in certain websites is it's not it's automatic. After like 5 seconds, it automatically pops up a little box and says, "Do you need? Hi, my name is. Do you need help?" It could be, do you want to buy it, or it could be simply, "I see that you're on the page. How can I help you?" So is there an opportunity to make it more pushed out rather
will
than
be, yeah.
looking to find where the chatbot would be?
Yeah, no, it's the bottom. I mean, we can pick where it is. Right now I'm playing with it in the bottom right corner, and there is a little, I'll call it a balloon window that comes up to say, "How can I help you?"
Oh, okay. So
I don't know the exact words yet,
Yeah,
but it's there. Yeah. So it pops up and then it goes away if you don't need it.
okay. And then the other thing is this, certain districts have it. It depends. I'm not sure where we will land on it. But other districts, the Board of Ed, they just have one email, not individual. And it would that way, and because sometimes my name is difficult to, now it's a lot easier, but there's certain.
Say I made it easy on here.
Yeah, so but it's something to think about. Certain districts, you cannot individually email. It goes to one. It's, I think, like info at or whatever, or board at.
I'm
where it's just-
info, but.
Yeah, but like,
But
just
there is,
one
that's
email.
really a board decision.
Yeah, that's something
and
for us to-
Sir,
for you-
he, Moran can, work with the board if that's something they decide they want.
Yeah, and
for
there's
sure.
certain districts that have no individual emails, like I said. So it's something to think about. It depends on
Yeah, that's really your guys' preference. It's
you
a,
wanna
it's
talk
a
about it
doable
now?
thing.
It's a doable thing just to, or even it could be additive. It doesn't have to be either or. It could be just a general one, as well as, so that we each get whatever gets sent out, or we could eliminate our individual. It's up to you, but that's something to think about. And I know, like, I think there's a few districts that literally have no email. So you have to call the secretary and say, "Hey, I want to reach the board, X, Y, and Z." And they'll be like, "Well, what's
No,
your
'cause
number?"
I know it could be set up similar to how I'm set up. So I have my name, but I also have info at, which is an alias for me. And then I was just talking to our IT department about creating a webmaster at, that would be what we call a collaborative email, which might be what works for if you guys decide you want to do that. And there's a whole bunch of us, well, I say a whole bunch, there's like 3 of us who could monitor that email account. So if somebody was out and there was a problem, somebody else would be able to pick it up and run with it. Whereas right now info just comes to me.
That's something to think about. You could just have a board so that people don't have to individually type each names, because I've gotten some emails where they're, reference board members are no longer even on the board. Or they're trying, so that's something to think about.
That's it. So I would say, thank you, and I'm open to any questions, suggestions, feedback that you guys have.
So I'm really impressed with the new website, the ease of use, the number of clicks, and overall just the way the branding has happened. And I've done some of those work in the past, so I know it's a lot of work, and a lot of people have opinions on fonts and spacing and corners, and to please all of them and still work with all that setup, it's a lot of work. So thank you so much for doing all of that.
Thank you.
And I don't even think you had enough resources to get this done. So getting volunteers and getting
It was
done.
a full summer.
Yeah.
I mean, I really
So-
started, as you know, last December, but it
Yes,
was
it-
full on hard press this summer, yes.
So it's a lot of work, so thank you for that. I just have a couple of questions on a broader website. So one is, and it may be Sheila or Mary may know some of the historical background on that. Did we have different color brandings for different schools in the past? And if we are now branding everything maroon, was there any resistance? Because earlier I always thought maroon was only high school and elementary school had their own mascots or different
No,
colors.
it's a great
or-
question.
Right.
And I did pull all of the superintendents and the committee together to discuss just that. On the old website, every school had its own logo and its own color.
Right.
And it was hard to tell you were even in the same district. And that was
So
one of the
I like that.
problems.
I
Yeah.
I always talk about uniformity
Yeah.
across the district, but my question is, was it historically as part of the traditions, they all had different color schemes? And
Well, I would
was
say as
it
long as
different?
this website was in place, so that was
Okay.
over a decade, right? The schools can still use their colors for their own T-shirts in the school or whatever that may be. They're keeping their logos, though we are going to talk about rebranding the logos. And by that, I mean, the Ridge will still have a raccoon. It might just be a nicer looking raccoon as opposed to the clip art they're currently using. Willard has a beautiful professionally designed, W with the panther or cougar, I'm not sure what it is, and they're gonna be mad that I forgot what it is, going through it. Other schools have a student drawn picture, so we're kind of all over the place with the logos. So the agreement, and I will say the colors, no one gave me, and I was so surprised, if anybody was on the call with me, I kept saying, are you sure? No one gave me any issue with the colors at all.
So, but you mentioned that schools can still keep their colors for their t-shirts. So are we branding maroon everything, or are we still keeping different colors for schools?
No, so anything that's public facing, we're keeping the maroon. We are the maroon.
But the t-shirts and those will still
They
be
kind of
branded.
varied on their t-shirts already in the schools and used various colors. They kind of didn't always stick to the one.
Okay.
But I didn't feel like that was as crucial because the activities at like the elementary school are within the elementary school. They're not really going out into the public with, I mean, if you do see kids wearing Ridgewood gear in public, it tends to be maroon.
Okay, but because we are maroon, I don't remember that as a historically across all these schools. So,
Mhm.
but if we are doing that, then maybe we should do that consistently. That's my point.
Yeah, and we're definitely in that direction. I will say they had no problem with the website being all maroon, which was great for me. Because
Okay.
it's really where I thought I was gonna be in for a little bit of a battle, but I really wasn't.
Okay,
As
perfect.
long as I kept their raccoons and their panthers and their, they were fine.
Okay.
And I would just add to that just by saying that, that I think that our priority has been first and foremost, this conversation, the website, so the different colors of all the different schools, frankly, on the old website, they came across as different districts.
Right.
There really wasn't that time together. So we had some conversations about redesigning all of their logos, and Christine suggested what was it? There was a district nearby that had.
Montville redid theirs
Montville.
and they had a similar situation to ours.
So they basically
Yeah.
did like a custom logo where there was like the M, but then the mascot was redesigned with the M. So they each had a unique thing, but there was like a consistent tie in the brand. Here, I am aware that particularly in the elementary schools, the colors are really important to them. So I wouldn't push I'm not taking a position in this conversation right now that we should tell them they shouldn't use their colors. I mean, I know green at Willard is a big deal. And I know Somerville red is like, that's another big
So
deal.
that's why I'm
right?
saying when we say we
Yeah.
are maroon, are we
Yeah.
saying all
Well,
schools? or-
so I think what we're saying, I mean, the theme "We Are Maroon" is intended to tie together the fact that we are all maroon, right? We like maroon is what ties us together. But it is important to folks, and I think it's important for individual schools to retain some sort of regional identity, especially when there are many elementary schools and people take such pride in their elementary schools. I think they take pride in, they love being all part of the Ridgewood community, and the survey data that we pulled did seem to indicate that they do feel like they're part of the Ridgewood community, but they also love their local identity. And the middle schools as well. I mean, they definitely have like their own local identity, and that's a hell, as long as that doesn't supersede their connectedness as Maroon, then I think it's great to give them the freedom and the space within their own building to retain their local identity too.
Okay.
And I was so with that, just to let you, we can go a little bit further than website, like all the letterheads are now consistent, and all maroon. And things like that. So we did bring it beyond just the website to where it was comfortable.
Yeah, insofar, I think the standard is insofar as things are very public facing,
Yes.
that we have to lead with Ridgewood and Maroon. But insofar as it's intended to be, internal identity, that's a, want to make sure they still feel that special local pride in their school.
Okay. And the second one was, in the content management system software for this website, do they have an option for automated backups? Like, can we export the entire website, all of its content on our servers once a
I
week,
don't
once
know.
a month?
That's a good
or-
question. I'm not sure, to be honest. My gut is telling me that Sirhi Mohan probably did ask that when we were
Okay.
going through this. I'd have to check. I can check on that.
And if we have that option, then have we scheduled those backups? So because if this company goes under or if they just disappear, then do we have all the content once in a while backed up on our servers? So that's one of the questions with hosted software always, that, okay, if that hosted software company goes away, then
No, I'll definitely check with Sirhi. I'm pretty sure that was something we asked because of the, servers and such. I will say this is the fastest growing website platform for school districts right now, so we're safe for a while, but it's still always good to know that we have that backup.
yeah,
Yeah.
after Enron went under, anybody can go.
Yeah.
out. So we should just always have some, like, I would say they may have backups in place, but we need to be ready for a disaster recovery.
Yeah, no, I'll check with,
In case of a
I'll check with
disaster-
our technology department for sure. That's a good question. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I used probably wrong word of backup because they are doing the backups, but we need disaster recovery, DR.
Do we have access to it? Absolutely. Good question. Thank you.
And this one, the third one, may be more on for Mark and the policy committee, that when on the website I noticed, so we have news section. So what really goes in district news is, I think right now our policy leaves that to the superintendent, and it's a superintendent's discretion. But do things from our partner organizations belong to district news, or is that a separate section of non-district news? Because we don't know if when we are promoting their events of any part, like CPAC or Ridgewood Education Foundation or specific HSA, if we are promoting those on our website as district news, do we have any control on who's attending there, what messaging they are promoting there, especially during election times? So what is that district news, or is that an extension to the district? So that, I think, is a broader question for all the district newsletters and on website. Because right now we are promoting some of those events on our website, and the question is, are they part of the district or are they extension of the district? So should they be promoted under district news section, or should we be even promoting them during election times?
So would I be understanding your question correctly if I rephrased it as, because the groups that you mentioned are like quasi-school entities, right? So like the Ed Foundation is affiliated with the school, so it's not completely independent. And HSAs are affiliated with the school, but not completely independent, as are like the CPAC group, which is an HSA. So the question is, but you're raising the question because even though they're deaf, I can tell you for certain they're there because they are formally affiliated with the schools, those groups. But your question is, to what extent do we have any ability to regulate the extent to which they become involved politically, right?
Right.
So I can't answer that right
Or
now.
are there any agenda, right? So if we can't answer that, then should we be promoting them without knowing what's exactly going on in that event? Who's attending the event? What's going on in the event? Should we be promoting as a district? Should we be promoting that? And how's foundation, like for example, Ridgewood Foundation, it's a great organization. They raise money and they donate it to us. How are they affiliated with the district?
So I think the core question here, outside of the website about district news,
Right.
is the first thing we need to answer is, and I just can't give you a certain answer on this, is can HSAs, ed foundations, CPAGs, and these other like quasi-school entities,
So
Can-
HSA and CPAC is probably quasi-school entity, but how is Ed Foundation quasi-school entity?
because their charter is built around, and I'm assuming their charter is built around specifically our schools and supporting our schools.
Yeah, just to add to it, yeah, because I was on the board of the Ridgewood Education Foundation years ago.
Yeah.
And they were always very specific that they are wholly independent. However, as you're saying, their charter, their mission is to donate solely and exclusively any of their money to the Ridgewood Public Schools. So they don't exist but for the
But-
Ridgewood Public Schools.
But what you just said is wholly independent.
Well,
It really
and
comes-
they've
it
always been
comes-
very
and-
clear about,
That's what I'm
right, so
saying.
that
Okay.
becomes
Yeah.
a little fair enough. It becomes, so it might be a discussion.
So there are
Yeah,
lots
it's,
of,
it's,
that
it's
needs
a
to be
policy dive
had.
Right.
question because
exactly,
so,
yeah.
Mr. Donnie's right about this because, we have, there are, I believe we have policy. I'll have to poll. Anyone feel free to fact check me now, but I believe we have some policy impacting how HSAs function and their structure. And I don't know off the top of my head if we have anything specifically for the Ed Foundation. So if we don't have policy for the Ed Foundation exists as a wholly independent entity,
Yeah.
then they might be an exception.
Historically, there's always been cooperation, clearly. Like, for example, in terms of what they have on their flyers and things like that. They were always, we were always very clear to be sure that whatever we put out was approved by the district, right? So, but I think you're asking a broader question, and I think we probably do need to take it up in policy.
right. And also, for
Um,
example, there are a lot of other independent people have created trusts just solely for donating to our high school scholarship funds.
With the Alumni Association,
alumni-
Jamboree.
Right, so they are, if we can't regulate, so Alumni Association would probably fall into the same category, right? If we don't have any policy or if we don't interact with them. So it's a broader question of which groups are we promoting as district news? So is that, do they come, because we have different sections. We have a section for community news, we have a section for district news. So do these, and we don't put, I'm hoping we don't put community school on our website. They go in the mailers and flyers, but there should be, like, that's a decision. I think it's left to the superintendent. And I'm hoping that Dr. Schwartz, you're scrutinizing what goes there because there are repercussions of what goes and who promotes different types of politics or different types of agendas.
I would just like to add, also consider, would be a huge impact here. So like organizations like Jamboree, for which we do a ton of advertising, are not school affiliated.
Right, but the thing is, if we don't do the advertising, they don't make as much.
No,
money.
no, I hear you. I'm
Right.
agreeing. I just want to make
Right.
sure when we look at this big picture, you
You're
have to
100%
take
correct.
into account groups like that. And CPAG, we are mandated to have that organization by law, by the state.
Yeah, so
So it's
CPAG
not
is
a
part of
regular
it.
HSA.
Right.
But CPAC is similar to HSAs, which is extension to the district. That's
Yeah.
what, yeah. So
But
quasi-
Jamboree came right to my head when we're talking about
Jamboree
this
is huge.
because, yeah, we
And-
have to
and
make
the-
sure that whatever we do, we have to think about organizations such as that bring in
A lot of
a
money.
lot of money.
And the education.
And not to us, but to our
Foundation-
students.
Right,
Education-
well, the
yeah.
Education Foundation has donated over $1 million
Right.
over the past several years, right? No.
But
So
it's
there's a
like-
lot to think about, I guess.
You
is
want
all
me
I
to show you
wanted
the
add
data?
there.
You know,
Rob
but
is
with
challenging
Jamboree-
me with the eye roll. I'll show you
No,
the
no,
data.
but
Yeah,
with
I've seen
Jamboree,
that
for
for
example,
about
if,
2 years.
if I'm a big advertiser or donor to the Jamboree and I have a business and part of the donation or support of Jamboree is to get my business advertised. And so if then Jamboree, through their relationship with the district, and it is to benefit the school, if I kind of get carried over, I benefit and I tangentially backdoor get my name as through the district news.
But-
Right, so
except
all
that-
I'm saying
except that
is-
they're
Some
paying for
kind
that
of-
debt, but they're paying. I mean, that's
That's
the
exactly-
point. I mean, that's the essence of
That's the po-
sponsorship,
and
right?
that's the thing, is that
So,
should we,
it's a-
as a
it's
non,
a-
as an educational entity, be accepting, not accepting, through the sponsorship avenue, should that allow, how much is our brand worth? How much is our membership worth? How much is our reach worth? Is it a $10,000 sponsorship? I'm not sure, but by
It's a fairly, I
giving
mean,
that
it's a fairly broad.
avenue, that's what's happening.
Right.
So
Well,
I
yeah,
think
that's-
my,
no, I
But I
think, I
don't-
think this is a policy decision, not to derail this conversation too much. I think you make excellent points.
that's what I'm saying, that
But
it
you get
needs,
to the heart of, because if you take a look, and you aggregate all the money that all of these different individual groups have given to Ridgewood in any given year, or certainly over the years, where a good percentage of those dollars come from generous sponsors who consistently donate to the group, which then, it comes back to us. I think we want to be very, very considered and careful about respecting those relationships, because ultimately we benefit a great deal. And when I say we, I mean the students benefit a great deal from those donations. I mean,
Mary,
it's a sponsorship,
I-
but there's a huge benefit there.
I think
But
I
I know it's a
agree.
larger
I agree
conversation.
that
Yeah.
we need to respect those relationships. All I'm saying is, we need to be, is who we are promoting needs to be driven by a policy, and that
Yeah.
policy needs to be consistently followed. That's it.
We agree 100%. And that's a conversation for policy where we, take this all apart again. So that's good.
Just one last thing I'll add to think about as well is if we take any decisions to not promote certain unaffiliated organizations, then we also should be prepared that they now will do their own communication that could be outside of our branding, our communication channels, right? For possible, right? So if we say, oh, we're not going to send out the Education Foundation's updates or jamboree, then they're going to have to go and reach out to their constituents somehow.
So I'm not singling out any organization.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
it's something to
right,
think
because
about.
when we talk about an organization benefiting the schools, or there are organizations that are benefiting the community. And if they go under community news, we have had situations when the school district sent out emails during September, October timeframe, and especially in the next 3 months. So district sent out email, our community clicked on that email for the link of that organization, and it popped up with endorsements, right? So in that case, now you are putting the superintendent and the administrative team in trouble, where their email, when somebody's clicking on a link in that email, is endorsing candidates. So we have to be,
So that's,
Careful.
yeah, and that's a very specific example, but you're right. You're absolutely right. That's something that we absolutely cannot allow to happen, because no one can be taking a political position.
so,
With
but
regard. So I
if we
agree with you
don't
there.
have, if we don't have control over those organizations and their website and their Facebook group, then can we promote them?
Yeah,
All
just,
good questions.
yeah, I think great questions. And I also think there's probably a possible solution in here with respect to some sort of regulatory control, like maybe some sort of like if we're going to engage in some sort of mutually beneficial activity, like most of the world, in most circumstances, we would engage in some sort of an agreement. We would have some sort of a contract. That doesn't mean we need to make everybody sign a contract per se, but even just a simple memorandum of agreement, if an agency is going to donate funds to us, that they would make a commitment that they are not going to be, or at least there's some sort of deliberative process regarding what their intentions are to engage politically. But there are mechanisms that we could develop that could give us a greater degree of certainty as to what these groups will or will not do, and what the recourse would be if they did do those things.
I'm sure,
Get it.
I wonder if it's a question to Strauss S. I mean, we're not obviously the first school district to think about this, so I'm wondering if Strauss S. may have some suggestions.
They might, but just in Oktoberfest is October 5th, which is the Ridgewood Education Foundation. The sole purpose of that money is going to come back to us. But if we're going to make decisions or have questions about that, we need to do that very, very quickly.
Yeah, and
Because
they're
that stuff's
currently on the
already out.
website and in the.
Yeah, well,
emails.
and I would expect them to be, because, but
Mary, I think the attorney already opined on it and suggested a policy, and we already voted on the policy. So I think
we
right
have
now,
a
we
policy?
just, yeah, you had a policy in last two meetings ago, we voted on it for what can go on the website, and that came from
so why are we asking this
Matt's-
question then now?
Matt's suggestion. So I'm saying, I just want to confirm that what we are promoting matches with that policy.
Christine, just the only, first of all, thank you for the great presentation here and all the good work And not just the website. I mean, you've done a lot of great work on the social media platforms and unifying our communication
you.
channels and emails and all of that. So thank you. It's a lot of work. Just the only comment I had is the app video was really impressive. I mean, the app is super impressive. Do we want to consider sending out just a dedicated email to get people to download the
Yeah, I
app?
just got the video done on Thursday morning before the superintendent coffee. So yes, it's definitely, we're gonna send something out because we definitely want to encourage that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine, what happens after December 1? So December 2nd, maybe somebody, decides, oh, wait, what if, will the old email address simply go dead, or will it redirect you to this new website address? What happens December 2nd?
Well, we don't, we own www.ridgewood.k12.njus, but the website won't be there anymore. So I have to, honestly, I'd have to check with Serhi. I'm not exactly sure, but the website won't be up.
There's no way to redirect it automatically to this new website?
I'm not 100% sure, but right now, the actual, if they were to go to the old website, nothing will be there. So I'm not sure if he can take that domain like we do with the emails. He might be able to redirect you automatically. But that contract expires on December 1st, and I know they're gonna take us down on December 1st.
Okay, if there's a way to automatically redirect.
Yeah, it's a
for
good
the
question.
Short term, it means December 1's coming right up.
I think as long as we own the domain, we
Yeah.
can just
I think they can
it.
redirect it just like our emails.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that
I'm
would be
just,
the
I don't
ideal
want to
situ-
speak out of turn. I'd rather check. Yeah.
That would be the ideal situation.
Just wanted to say thank you. You've done
Thank you.
a great deal of work and I appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
It was a labor of love for sure.
Thank you,
so
Christine.
much.
Thank you, Ms.
Yeah.
Corliss.
Superintendent report?
Thank you so much. So welcome, everyone, and I want to wish everyone best wishes for a new school year. I hope that everyone had a really productive and positive and restorative summer. We are ready to go to the buildings. We had a meeting today. The high school is just a little bit of stuff left at the high school. As many of you know, when we do a lot of work over the summer, all the floors get stripped and waxed, and there's a great deal of cleaning that goes on through the schools, and it is quite a production. So our team, our Aramark team, led by our new manager, Mark Ligon, I charged them with being ready, having the schools ready 2 weeks in advance, as opposed to trying to bring it up to the last, down to the wire. And they really worked, the team worked very, very hard and did a really great job of largely wrapping things up last week. Ridge and Glen School have many summer programs, and so they're always kind of they're down to the wire at those two schools. And they were able to shuffle resources around and tackle those schools last week. And I got the word today that Ridge and Glen are pretty much done. Like I said, a little bit more work at the high school, but we appear to be in good shape opening the school year. We didn't have any major construction projects, but the small items that we did, everything seems to be in good shape and ready to go. We've also been pretty adamant with our groundskeeping team. I did notice some deficiencies in how our grounds were prepared last year. So we're going to be on top of that to make sure that things look nice and neat and tidy as his kids come back to school. I also want to just give a thank you to our local municipality, particularly our police department and all of our crossing guards. I did check in with them. We are fully staffed with crossing guards, last I checked, and they've engaged in their initial training. So we're really looking forward to them being available to help out our kids get to school. We have a lot of interesting things happening this year. I'm not going to talk for a crazy long amount of time, but of course, as always, I want to draw attention to the fact that we had our superintendent coffee at last Thursday. So if you want to get caught up on all things in the district, please feel free to check that out. But a couple of big things that are going on that I wanted to draw attention to. We have strategic planning that is underway at this time. And so we have some public sessions that Ms. Corliss is going to be sending out a push notification about regarding shortly, but I will bring to your attention a couple of dates and times. So there are 2 community or public forums that will be available for community members. They're going to be on September 9th at 7 p.m. and September 23rd. Actually, I don't have the time on this one right now. I believe that's during the daytime. It's the 23rd. And then we have a session for parents on September 10th at 10 a.m. and again on September 18th at 7 p.m. So we tried to stagger one for community members, one for parents. It wouldn't be the end of the world if a parent went to a community member conversation, but we wanted to separate those out so that way we're very clear that even community members who may not have students in our schools, their perspective is still valuable to us. They still contribute to our funding through their tax dollars. And so we want to honor their commitment and have them be a part of our processes. There are many other sessions for representatives in many other groups, but I wanted to put those out there as soon as possible. We'll get a formal invitation out. Please do join us. It is very important to us to hear from our community members. There'll also be a brief survey that was designed based on initial interviews with our board members and our administrative team. So we are going to be sending that out shortly, but just please keep this on your attention. We'll be reporting about it all year. Our goal is to complete this process, which will include an initial focus group sessions, like I just mentioned here. Then there will be some analysis of that information. We'll then develop some strategic planning and some action teams. And we'd like to have really all the strategic plan and the action teams wrapped up by budget season. So that way we can align our 25-26 budget to the outcomes of the strategic plan. So thank you all for your support on the board for bringing in our partners at Hazard Young and Atia who are leading this project, and really looking forward to continuously reporting out on its outcomes. Also wanted to remind folks that our board meeting schedule and coffee schedule is a little unique this month. We decided to add a few meetings for the fall when we had our reorg meeting, and so we have a Thursday meeting. How about that? So September 12th, we will have a Thursday meeting. I think we had some difficulty getting everybody together on a Monday. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But that will be on September 12th. So that's not an error. That's not a typo. Please make sure it's on your calendar if you'd care to join us. We also have, but then our superintendent coffee again follows, usually precedes the second meeting of the month. So that was scheduled for September 26th. And then our second board meeting in September will be on September 30th. Also on our district website are all the back to school nights. I will be going to all of them. I just learned that I have my own children, and so I have their back to school nights that I have to prioritize as well. And my student, my child who is going into high school this year, his back to school night, which I really do not want to miss, happens to conflict with our two middle schools. So I will make a recorded, custom recorded message for each middle school and send them out. I'm sorry that I won't be there that night, but I just really want to remind everyone and encourage everyone to go. Even if you've gone other times before, every time you go to a back to school night, remember you're meeting your child's teachers or new teachers. And as much as there's, maybe you might perceive that the message at the beginning might not, you might be a veteran, but I would encourage you to go to all of them. I think being involved in your school in the same way that I'm doing it with my own kids is really important because the more you know about your child's school experience, the more you can engage with them about it, the more meaningful it becomes. And it sends a powerful message to your child when you take the time to get there. And if you can get both parents there, if you have both parents, try to get them there if you can, because it's really just a great thing it's really a great way for parents to support their kids. And there's plenty of other positive things to say and report on, and there's plenty of other minor just concerns that we're working on. But one thing that I just want to take a minute to just state is my appreciation for our interim assistant superintendent, Richard Friedman. This is actually Mr. Friedman's last meeting with us, and I can hardly believe it. Mr. Friedman joined the district in September of 2022. I guess that was, right? And he had retired, and I believe the way he tells it, he wasn't really planning on doing a lot of interim work, but he was kind of brought in here on invitation into Ridgewood Public Schools in an interim assistant principal role, first at GW, then at the high school. And as I came on the team here, we ended up, I learned shortly after I was appointed that Stacy Polstra, our assistant superintendent at the time, had taken a superintendency of her own and would be leaving the district. So we already were hiring for a couple other positions. So it was recommended to me, I believe it was Ms. Murphy actually, who recommended that I have a conversation with Mr. Friedman to see if maybe that might be a possible good fit. We had a very funny initial interaction trying to connect with each other over Zoom. We both had sound difficulty, which is funny because we're both pretty technically savvy. I think you worked for a tech company for a brief period of time, and I pride myself in my tech skills, and we just could not figure that out. So we were miming at each other, and eventually we communicated each other's phone numbers to each other, and we had an initial conversation. But it was very clear in my conversation with Mr. Friedman that not only was he qualified, but that I had a very compatible views of leadership, and that this might be a good arrangement. So some follow-up conversations ensued, and we invited him to join us as a director I'm sorry, interim assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. Since he's joined the team, he has been just a balancing force. He keeps people very calm while at the same time pushing them to do good things. Specifically, I've been really impressed with his ability to really keep everyone focused on ensuring positive outcomes for students and growth and progress, while at the same time always seeming to lead with the importance of a humanistic approach, and particularly an empathetic and empowering mindset when approaching staff members and school leaders. The work of a school leader can be a bit challenging at times, and he's always had a light heart about him, and I always encourage people to recognize the joy of what we do, and that at the end of the day everything is always going to be okay, especially when we work together and we do good things. We focus on making good outcomes for kids. He's led the supervisory team. He was integral in our performance against our 23-24 school year goals. And lastly, I would just say what's really been cool is I've worked with a lot of interims over the course of my career. And Mr. Friedman does not behave like your traditional interim by in any stretch of the imagination. He's here all the time. He is rock solid and available. He is, if there's ever like a around the clock sort of an issue, he's always quick to a text. He comes in on Mondays, and he acts like he's been thinking about the things we have to do that week all weekend. So that's not necessarily what the job calls for an interim, but Mr. Friedman, you brought that, and I appreciate it greatly. So thank you so very much for being here with us. We have a resolution here that we prepared. I want to thank Mrs. Murphy for getting that together for us. So we're going to have a little resolution for you. But in the meantime, I just thought I would give any board members that want to say anything an opportunity real quick.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Dr. Schwartz. You covered a lot. And when Mr. Friedman was at high school, I did not interact much, but I can just talk about some of my interactions and some of the accomplishments since he became the interim superintendent or interim curriculum, that assistant superintendent for the curriculum and instructions. There were so many changes that our residents were demanding for a long time in the district. And once Mr. Friedman came into that role, they just happened. Like math curriculum, there were residents showing up since I think 2018, 2019, talking about math curriculum. And now if you talk today, that's no longer an issue. And now we are celebrating the developments in math. So there were a lot of changes that happened during his time. And there are these individual supervisors have the credit for doing the actual work, but I think that comes with Mr. Friedman's leadership to navigate that and to mentor that and them and to get that done, because there is always some resistance to change. So to help those supervisors and getting those changes done. So I think that there is a lot of credit there for our changes in the math curriculum, our changes in the ELA, elementary school ELA, the complete reversal of how we were approaching ELA. So that is a big accomplishment. You initiated the freshman focus type new course for middle school, so middle school orientation. So that was you came up with that idea and you followed through to make sure that it happens. I never saw that many grants on our agendas before you came on board for curriculum work, and so you did the you focused. I should say focused back on academics and academic improvements. There were new tutoring opportunities, that some grants and programs that you introduced for tutoring in our school district for all students or students who need to catch up. There are multiple new online subscriptions now. There are multiple new tools available to our teachers for evaluations, for worksheets, for math, for English, all of those. And we have two of them today on the agenda. So I've seen a lot of new improvements in that area. Basically, if I summarize that part, you brought instructions to 21st century. I can say that. And lastly, I introduced our green team to Mr. Friedman because they wanted to collaborate with the schools for Earth Day and do some programs in the elementary schools. And Dr. Schwartz and Mr. Friedman both were very open to that idea. Mr. Friedman met with him, and they came up with the poster competition idea for elementary school students, and they really enjoyed it. So overall, a lot of great work happened, and I'm really not happy about this vote that I'm going to vote for your resignation for retirement or moving on to the other district. That's one vote I do not want to cast that vote tonight. Thank you.
So I agree with Sarab 100%. I've really, really enjoyed working with you. It's been too short for me. I feel like I've learned a great deal from you. I want to thank you for you came in here to this district and you listened and observed and really gave many of us the tools and the language to encapsulate and put into movement our values. So you've said things like equity of experience. You talked about the magic of Ridgewood and how there's a magic at each individual school, and yet there's the overarching magic and how we kind of balance all of that. And I want you to know that those phrases and your approach have affected me directly, and I think will have a much longer impact than maybe you think for a long time. You really have changed the way some things are done for the better, and I want to thank you for that. I, you know, you bring great perspective. There's been a couple times when I thought, I'm just going to call Rich. I'm going to ask him because I get very emotional. I'm sure nobody's noticed that. But you have a great calming perspective, which I think is really important for a new board member. I think it's important for the community, for the staff. It has been an absolute privilege to work with you. And your values and concerns for our community, our students, the people, really it's been a gift. So thank you very, very much for everything you've done, and you have left a lasting impact here, or you will. And I agree, I'm not happy for the vote either, but I'm very happy to congratulate you and as you move forward.
Yep. No, I echo all of that. I will say a great leader is someone who drives for results and change, but does that by bringing everybody along, and you truly have done that. So thank you for everything you've done. It's not easy to push for change and bring everyone along with you and make sure people are in the boat with you and lead from the front, lead by suggestions, by ideas, but by bringing everybody there, by being open-minded to lots of ideas and suggestions from everybody, whether it's board, whether it's community, and then kind of bringing that all together and finding the right path forward. So I echo all the sentiments. It's been absolutely great working with you, Rich, and getting to know you. And thank you for everything you've done. And we're going to see you back here before you know it. I'm pretty sure. So, that's how I like to leave these things.
I think everything's been said, but I'll say your fingerprints are in so much of the recent progress that the school district has made. It has been under your watch. And I am so honored to have learned from you because you have this wealth of experience and your love of education, of what education means to the staff and to the students who come through our doors. It's really profound. And I'm really, I'm sad to see you go. And really, there is a tremendous debt of gratitude that we have. And thank you for
going way above and beyond of any interim that, I've worked with. So you've done so much in the short amount of time. Thank you.
Your impact is great. And, what I appreciate was that you were a champion for our schools, but mostly for our students. And in your ability to listen, be responsive, always in a very calm way. Sometimes I was like, wow, are you going to lose it? You never did. And it was always that can do, we can think about it. We can do it. We can reframe it. And you had a wonderful opportunity at GW for the 6 months, and then to come into the high school, which was in a little bit of turmoil and a lot of grief and sadness, and you work there, and then to come here where we had some turnover, as you know. But always with that positive outlook. So I learned greatly from you, and it was a pleasure serving on curriculum when we were there, and all the other committees that we were able to interact with. Your voice was so meaningful. So I wish you great luck in your interim position in Saddle River, and that district is very lucky to have you. So thank you for all you've done for Ridgewood in a short 2 years.
Right, and maybe the laws only restrict the continuation of more than 2 years, and after, so once that limit hits there, you may come back here for something else.
We tried very hard to break those rules.
No, but he may be able to come back after 1 or 2 years at the other one.
We'll find out.
If I can just quickly respond and thank everyone for, just tremendous kindness. And I'm glad I was able to offer something to Ridgewood, and Ridgewood offered something to me. So it was really, it's been just an honor and a pleasure, not only to work with this board, but to work with the administrative team in these different capacities, and, to arrive in a town whose values echo mine, and to be able to contribute. So I'll always remember my place here, and you never know what happens down the road. I now know how to get here. So you never know, but thanks so much. The words really, they sink in. They have great meaning to me, so I appreciate you sharing them.
So I'll leave it to the board if you want to read the resolution now, or you want to wait till the HR section, so it's memorialized there. It's up to all of you.
You can do it now. Yeah. Are you reading?
I think for board president, you're getting Peter read it.
So this is a resolution honoring Richard Friedman. Whereas Richard Friedman has served the entire community, staff, and administration with integrity and administrative acumen as an interim administrator and the interim assistant superintendent from September 2022 to August 2024. Whereas we owe Mr. Friedman a tremendous respect and gratitude for the educational leadership he has provided to the district's administrative team during a time of significant transitions. Whereas Mr. Friedman has shared his expertise in the district's curriculum and instruction, and has guided district supervisors, especially during a period of important shifts in our math and language arts programs. Whereas Mr. Friedman has been a valuable voice in curriculum decisions, actively engaging in productive, transparent, informative, and collaborative conversations with the community and the board trustees, while respecting their input. Mr. Friedman's steady leadership through these multifaceted discussions was essential in advancing student progress. Whereas Mr. Friedman has provided mentorship and coaching to administrators and teachers, and has been an invaluable resource to all staff members and to the board, if I could add that. Resolved that we, the members of the Ridgewood Board of Education, wish Mr. Friedman all the best in his next endeavor, as interim superintendent of Saddle River Public Schools, and be it further resolved that this resolution be entered into the official minutes of the Ridgewood Board of Education meeting held on the 26th day of August, 2024. So thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
A second.
I think there might be a unanimous here, but I don't know. Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Quack. Yes. Ms. McCallum,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood.
You vote, all vote no, do you stay, Rich? Vote yes.
And Ms. Brogan. Yes. Okay, is there any other?
That concludes all the items that I had for the superintendent report for now.
So we'll move on to consent items, regular and routine, attendance at conferences. I move attendance at conferences.
Second,
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Ms. McCallie,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
yes.
Ms. Brogan. Yes. Administration, we are in first reading for these policies that were on our July for just discussion, so.
I move administration.
Second.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Ms. McCallie, Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Brogan. Yes. Curriculum instruction,
I move curriculum and instruction, and as I had mentioned before, we have two new software or online tools for on the agenda this week time. One is No Red Ink and one is Common Lit. And both of these will are in continuation of adding more and more tools for our teachers to create online assignments, online worksheets, and they'll help a lot.
they sound like great programs. I understand they were reviewed in the curriculum committee.
Yeah, so for a long time, our teachers were already using them as free tools or freeware. And now it's time to actually move to the paid version and get all the, unlock all the features.
Mhm.
Second,
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Quack,
Yes.
Ms. McCallie,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
yes.
Ms. Brogan. Yes. Human resources, there's just a ton in here. Thank you very much again for all your work. I know it's a long summer. And positions are all filled, except we have, I know some aid position, paraprofessional.
Yes, we're in very good shape with our teaching positions. We have some last minute resignations that you might see on the agenda, so we are actively working on filling those. And at last conversation, I believe that we have some recommendations coming that will be on the September 12th agenda for those recent resignations. If everything works out, we are still in critical need of lunch aids for our elementary schools. So again, I make a public plea that if there's anyone interested, to please reach out either to myself to apply on our website, or you can contact the elementary school that you're interested in working directly and speak with the principal about more information about working in that school. We do pay $19 an hour for lunch aids. And we are, and please share the information. There may be someone that that is retired or currently working from home and would like to get out of the house for an hour or two a day. And this is a great opportunity for you to come and see how our schools are and be a part of our school community.
Great. So I'll move human resources.
Second,
And I asked Mark Dr. Schwartz to just go over the interims, just because there's a number of them, and just for the community to sort of understand what's happening. So when you see it, you might go, oh, my.
Thank you so much. Yes, and I could have included that in my superintendent report, so I'm sorry that I did not. But we're very blessed, well, for a couple of things. First of all, for us to be in the current job market in public schools, for us to be starting the school year with no major instructional vacancies is pretty remarkable. Even for the last several years, it's been hard, especially with some hard to fill positions. So kudos to the principals and to Mrs. Murphy and everyone who's been involved in recruiting. We've been doing job fairs and been very, very proactive in making sure that we have qualified, excellent, and actual people in front of our students. Many districts are resorting to remote teachers, or they're having to start with substitutes because they can't fill hard to fill positions. And in some school districts that traditionally struggle to attract teachers, they have some cases dozens, if not hundreds of vacancies. So, so first of all, kudos regarding having everyone here. Another really nice thing about having a school district like Ridgewood, where we have such great, the district's is in very good standing and people are very interested in coming and joining us here, is we do have the ability to attract really high quality interims. And that's also a function of the great professional network that our teams have. As we know, of course, Mr. Friedman has been such a great addition to the team. And we have a few other additional interims here and I certainly want to credit Mrs. Murphy for doing a lot of the work and connecting with these folks, but there are other folks involved as well. For starters, I want to introduce Dr. Matthew Murphy. Dr. Murphy was approved by the board to be a long-term substitute for a supervisor position that was going to be vacant for a portion of the year. Dr. Murphy is actually a resident of Ridgewood, but he's most well known in the area for being the superintendent of Ramsey Public Schools for 10 years. Very qualified as an educator, but also very, very like-minded to Mr. Friedman. I spoke with Dr. Murphy to see if he had interest in joining us in the role of Director of Curriculum and Instruction. We'll talk a little bit more about the roles in central office because I'm going to be making some recommended changes. So for now, we're hiring this as an interim Director of the Curriculum and Instruction position. But in terms of the curricular leadership, it's going to be very similar to what Mr. Friedman has been doing. And I've had some great conversations with Dr. Murphy. We've already had him working with the team a little bit. He joined our administrative retreat a couple weeks ago, and he seems to be a really excellent fit. So I look forward to the board having a chance to work with him as well. We're recommending him to be approved through January because we have opened a search for a permanent director, and we have some really excellent applicants. So we look forward to initiating that process in September. And sharing more with you about how that process will take place. I do intend to use the same selection process that we've used for our other administrative hires. It's a very rigorous process. There's multiple phases. We involve quite a few folks. And of course, we kind of round the whole thing out with a very large stakeholder panel and a performance task. So I look forward to that process and letting you know how that goes. But in the meantime, I'm very grateful to have Dr. Murphy with so much curriculum and instruction experience and already a very clear sense as to where we're going and how and where he can take us. And then we have two additional interims. For the high school, we have Miss Christine Salerno. Miss Salerno is one of our guidance counselors. She's very experienced, and we're going to be sending out some information about these individuals, introducing them as well shortly. But Mrs. Salerno has, I believe, almost 20 years experience in counseling. She's worked in private schools and public schools. And so we're recommending her to serve in the role of interim supervisor of counseling while we evaluate our administrative model at the high school and consider how we're going to move forward with permanent hires. But she's going to do this role for full time. And we have an additional retired guidance counselor, Mr. Thomas Kren, who's going to be filling in her role as an actual counselor at the school. So we really look forward to having her. I've had a chance to meet with her and some other counselors last year when we were talking about college admissions. I found her to be highly knowledgeable, and I'm very grateful for her willingness to step in and be a lead for us. And I'm realizing I'm kind of speaking for Mrs. Murphy right now with some of these candidates. Maybe you could introduce, is it Dr. Cardillo? Yeah, maybe you can introduce Dr. Cardillo to the group and round out anything I should have said with the other candidates.
Absolutely. And also Mr. Kren, who is joining us, is actually a retired director of school counseling. So from another Bergen County district, and will lend some support to Christine while she is transitioning into this administrative role. So he will be a great asset at the high school. Dr. Joanne Cardillo will be joining us for the fall at GW Middle School as an interim assistant principal. Dr. Cardillo is very excited to be joining our district. She actually is a retired superintendent from Passaic Valley Regional District. Prior to that, she was a principal supervisor for Patterson Public Schools and a long-term middle school principal. So she is going to be a great asset as we start, well, we have already started the process, I believe, with searching for the next permanent assistant principal. And hopefully we will be appointing that individual once Mr. Bailey rounds out the process later this fall, with the hopefully anticipated start date of January as well. So she's excited to be joining us, and they've already started meeting, and I think she's going to be a great asset to the middle school with her experience as during this transition. You're welcome.
I did want to point out that we do have one retirement on our agenda tonight, and just scrolling down. And that's Judith Russo, who, from Accounts Payable Administrative Assistant. She's been with us for 5 years and she is retiring. She's resigning to retire as of the 1st of September, so next week.
And I'll also just say thank you to Ms. Russo. She's been someone who's been supported our business office for quite some time. She has a background as an accountant. She's done really great work for us. And tomorrow will actually be her last day. So if you know Ms. Russo,
Wow.
make sure you say thank you to her tomorrow.
So I think we're ready. Are there any questions on HR? Okay, we're ready to vote.
Mr. Donnie.
So I already mentioned one thing that I'm not very happy to vote about today on this agenda item, and the other one, that anytime somebody retires or leaves, it's a great loss to the district. But I just want to mention one more name here because I personally have interacted, and I think it would be a big loss to our district. Mr. Monahan, Tim Monahan, moving out of Ridgewood. He's been a lifer here and has contributed a lot at high school and middle school and Ridgewood, the Alumni Association. So I think that would be another. So when you're looking for these replacements, it will be a difficult one to backfill because those expectations are always there's comparisons and expectations. So when you're trying to fill Mr. Monahan's position, it will be that will be a challenge for you. So I'm not happy about that one also when I'm voting, but yes.
Ms. Quack.
Yes, and I echo that. Mr. Moynihan is well, such highly regarded and such a linchpin of the community at large as an alumni, as a parent, and as a supervisor. And so best wishes. Congratulations to him for his next stage of his career, but he will be greatly missed. But yes.
Ms. McCallie.
Ditto, and yes, that's that.
Mr. Mahmood stepped away for a minute. Ms. Brogan.
Yes.
And welcome to all the new hires.
Mr. Mahmood, we're voting on human resources. Thank you. Yeah, they were a great group at New Teacher Orientation. They were fun, and I'm looking forward to working with them. They're a great addition.
And we'll go to finance. Someone like to move finance? I'll move finance.
Second.
Just for the record, let me read the donations from Willard Home and School Association, $20,000, a gift in kind. And that was renovation of the Willard Auditorium, including repairs to the stage, painting and building, 2 new closets. Mrs. Carrie Casper, $3,000, a gift in kind, of a tricycle to be used for physical therapy at Hawes Elementary School. Again, Willard Home and School Association, $22,810, which is a gift in kind for renovations to the faculty room at Willard Elementary School. And again, Willard HSA, $4,795 to be used to purchase the Reflex Math and Prac online math instruction program. The Morris family for $4,000, which is a gift in kind of 2 red metal park benches to support the Little Free Library at Somerville Elementary School. And the Ridgewood High School HSA, RHS Home and School Class of 2023, $7,155.73 to be used for pictures around the high school building and to enhance Kevin Feely's student leadership program. So we thank our generous donors. HSAs are pretty amazing in what they raise. Other than that, are there any questions on finance?
Before we vote, I do want to emphasize that clauses, items 5, 6, and 7, these are new. Finance Committee, we did, Mohammed and we did review them. The clauses, basically, if approved, will give the qualified purchasing agent, the business administrator, the ability to go to the co-ops for different services. This in no way bypasses the bidding process, and it's stipulated so in the language. It actually does say that. So it does not bypass it. We still have the ultimate board approval, but it just gives him the latitude to go to the co-ops for the different services.
I just, on one note on number 12, Academy 360, that's, there's only one student. It's listed twice, but that was just a typo. I think we've been talking about on just again to note on 14 is the shared service agreement with the Village of Ridgewood and the school resource officer program and additional security services. So I don't know would you like to speak about that a little bit?
Of course. So we spoke about this a little bit in the budget process, and we've spoken about it in committee several times since. I don't remember the last time we talked about it. I know it came up at my superintendent coffee a little while ago, and I had indicated that I was aiming to get to a place where I could make a recommendation to the Board of Education to work with the police department to employ 3 retired police officers, one to be stationed at the high school and one to be stationed at each middle school. At the coffee, it came up because a community member had voiced some concerns about what the nature and the role of the officer would be. And I really explained that as a school district, we have to work very closely with the police. You probably noticed that we have police in our schools on a periodic basis. And that is because we operate under something called the Uniform Memorandum of Agreement, which is a New Jersey document that all school districts and police departments must sign together. And that document sets forth all the areas in which the law intersects, where schools and it really applies to the nexus between schools and police. It's a very important document, and as much as the majority of students and staff go to school every day without any kind of incidents, with as many students as we have, there are matters that do come up that do involve law enforcement. So if we do not have a school resource officer program, or if we have a very limited program, when we do have to engage with the police, we end up just kind of working with whatever officer happens to be available. Now, our RPD is a great group of professionals. We're very grateful for all of them, and we're happy to have any of them come and help our students. But often when we have to involve police, particularly when it involves students, it can be a very sensitive matter. So to have our own resource officers who are part of our school community, who are assigned to one school, who are there for the arrival and the dismissal every day, who can assist with door security, but also who can build relationships with staff and students, is really a great asset for a school district. I've worked with school resource officers in multiple districts. Well, as with any other position, sometimes people aren't the right fit, and that's not a problem. We just work with the police department and we change the officer. But the officers that I've worked with, the majority of them, like, with the exception of really one, they have been wonderful in terms of their ability to build relationships with kids, provide a level of additional security vigilance in the school, but also really they become really trusted people that kids go to. They're actually prohibited from engaging in discipline. They can't do police investigations in school. All the laws that apply, that restrict police officers outside of school restrict them in school. So the administration still does all the discipline. They still do the formal investigations. But it is amazing that when you put police officers in an environment where their only charge is to be a support for students and to build relationships with them and to be kind of eyes and ears and really a form of security regarding regarding our security against external threats, they end up becoming really great conduits of information. And one of the things that I always found interesting is how students, even students who sometimes find themselves as as kids who don't always make the right choices, have such a tendency to go to the school resource officer with concerns about other students, with concerns about possible threats. And that becomes a fantastic avenue by which we can stay ahead of potential issues. And really, before something becomes a police matter or disciplinary matter, intercede and provide support and help steer whoever might be involved back in the right track in a very positive way. So I think this is a great move for all of us. I think it's going to be a great investment in district resources. And I want to express appreciation for the prior year's school resource officer, who's done a great job with us, and some other officers who've worked with us. But by switching to the Class 3 designation, which means that they're retired officers, we can get considerably more service for not much more money.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
I think we're ready to vote.
I apologize, but I did not record the first and the who motion.
I moved it and Mohammed seconded.
Thank you. I apologize.
Can you make a note that, so it's based on a comment that item number 12, it's Academy 360, one student, it's on twice,
Yep.
but you'll amend it in the minutes.
Correct.
Okay.
We will
Do we need
correct
to
it.
say that when we vote, that it's as amended?
I think, yeah, you can say as amended. Yes, sir. So Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Kwok,
Yes.
Ms. McCallie,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Brogan.
Yes. Approval of bills. Mohammed?
I present forth the bills that I have reviewed this week for approval.
I second.
Mr. Donnie,
Yes.
Ms. Kwok,
Yes.
Ms. McCallie,
Yes.
Mr. Mahmood,
Yes.
Ms. Brogan.
Yes. Board member announcements. I just want to, on Wednesday, we have convocation and we welcome back our staff. I know that there have been staff busy in the buildings, but this is the official welcoming at BF. So we look forward to that. 8 o'clock, I think it starts, or 8:30? 8 o'clock, everybody gathers,
double check the
8:30, I
time.
think the program starts. So, and then next Tuesday, September 3rd, we welcome back our students. And it's the beginning of a whole nother year. So, all good. Anybody else have any, okay. Board committee reports, everybody's been busy. And so I thought that since, some of us are on a couple of committees, maybe I would just see if, on finance, Mohammed, do you have anything to add on finance? Don't want to put you on the spot.
No, I think, is there anything we missed from the?
No, I think, the agenda supports, the work that we did to make sure that we can bring it to the board vote.
Right. Right. Facilities, Saram,
You can cover.
well, you saw the notes in facilities. There's a lot happening there. So we did just briefly touch on our fields Orchard, is still gonna be closed, but they'll be reseeding. And I believe that after, and I don't know if I have that date right, is it September 21st? You can water more frequently. It could be earlier than that. Is it the 13th? September 13th. Okay. So don't pay attention to me on the 21st. September 13th, you're able to water more frequently. And so, the seeding will happen at Orchard. And, Christine was able to, work with the village and allow for more watering at BF for the sod that's down, and it really looks beautiful at BF. So thank you for that.
Oh, actually, I wanted to ask you that. I thought that the municipalities were exempt from local ordinances or local, so does that cover Board of Ed? Did we have to go to get a special exemption for that?
So I spoke with Mr. Kazmark. We're in ongoing conversations regarding specifically watering and how that applies. I mean, we are, as far as I understand it, we are subject to local ordinances
Oh.
unless there's a carve out, and there is a carve out specifically for not just for the schools, but in general for specific reconstruction of landscaping. So that's where we're fitting under that. But we're going to have some follow-up conversations because in retrospect, I would have liked to have requested an exemption for Orchard as well. I just didn't, but this seems to be a fitting plan for us to get this up and ready. So that way, by the end of the fall, it's good. The field is good to go. But it is something that I'd like to coordinate a little more closely with the village on because, especially when it comes to a field, which is a public, which is a public asset. And is often used by groups even outside of our schools. It seems to make sense that we should get some level of exemption.
Yeah, I mean, like the village of Ridgewood themselves don't have to abide by their own ordinances on some certain restrictions. I didn't know if that carve out or exemption applied to the other side of the municipal service, like the Board of Ed. So it sounds like no, but to the extent that it can be approved and in an expedited way, the Fields Committee would be really grateful.
Well, as I said, September 13th, the watering restrictions.
No, but we've been wanting to do this for, it's been ongoing discussions.
Yeah. And then, some asbestos abatement at BF, they are converting one of their lower level, rooms into instructional space. And you see that on, the job boiler cleaning. There has been the Gianfrancaro architect engineers have started their review of our buildings and beginning to go through our buildings. We'll be looking at that, and that report will come to the board and to the facilities committee, and we'll begin to really look at the prioritizing of projects. And then they're also Gianfrancaro is also doing some work on our field study. And I think that was really most of what we talked about. We are still in conversation about the HVAC option for Glen and Ridge.
So I just had a couple follow-up questions. With regard to, the field study, do we have surveys yet? I know one of the
Do we have what?
surveys. My understanding was we couldn't really
Yeah.
get field feasibility until we had surveys, and I wasn't sure where we were at in that process. We had some bids or something?
Yeah, we got a quote on surveys, so we just have to make a final decision, but
Okay.
but that's definitely the next first step.
Okay, excellent. And then do we know when we're gonna make a decision on the HVAC with Ridge and Glen so that we can move forward with that?
Yeah, in our meeting, we had a nice conversation about just wanting to make sure we checked all of our boxes. There was a plan that was discussed by the board last year with the former architect about a VRF system, which is a variable refrigerant. Help me out here, Mr. Donnie. Variable refrigerant.
Refrigerant, RF, I think.
Yeah, what's the F I'm biking? Yeah. But it's basically, it's a system that reclaims energy from a hotter part of the building and redistributes it in a colder part of the building. So it's very energy efficient. So in the end, um, our new architect just recommended going with a more traditional system for basically just for ease of maintenance and and there will still see a significant efficiency improvement by going to a new system. You figured out what the F is, I can
Flow.
say. Flow, yes. Variable refrigerant flow. And the idea is that it can move the refrigerant around in the system with the system of I'm forgetting all the terminology here, but there's basically there are mechanisms that can actually control the flow of the refrigerant, and it can be used to in heating capacities and cooling capacities to redistribute that. So, so it's a really it's becoming, this types of system are becoming very widely used, but they don't introduce a fresh air component, whereas traditional HVAC does. We've learned that there are a variety of other options. So, the spirit of ensuring that we are staying true to some of our commitments around sustainability and being role models of good energy use, we are making sure that we spec out a variety of different systems that could be more energy efficient than a traditional system. And we are then going to do a cost analysis. And then it's just a simple question of, are we willing to spend, if there's additional associated costs, are we willing to spend those additional costs if the maintenance is manageable and it's going to get us that much more energy efficiency? So this is a project that I'm saying has to be resolved. We have to have a path forward in the coming months because we have to be prepared to do this project next summer.
Yeah.
And we're also looking at the windows over there too. So when there's a possibility we could do with the windows and the HVAC at both buildings next summer.
So thank you for that.
Sure.
Not to get too much in the weeds, but as the parent of two kids with severe allergies, you talked about not having fresh air in the building. Will there be an impact like on the health of the kids?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I don't know if you can answer that.
yeah, we're not exploring any solutions that don't include fresh air. What I'm saying is that the VRF technology requires a separate,
okay,
a dual system.
Okay.
That's a fresh air system.
Okay, you made me a little nervous
Yeah,
there. It's
and
like-
they can be linked together, but there's a bunch of different models for how to set it up.
Okay,
And so we're exploring all the different
no,
models.
no, I appreciate that clarification.
So Mary, one of the,
Legally, there's a reason. You
Okay.
have to. I mean, there's a.
Well, it just
there's a
seems like
formula.
nobody wants
Yeah.
to go to school in an airplane, right? So, which is what it sounded like.
so but one of the requirements we have put forth in front of the architects is nobody should be able to turn off fresh air component in the classroom.
Okay,
So fresh air component of the system should be driven by occupancy sensor. If somebody is in the classroom, then depending on the amount of occupancy, it should run at that frequency. So
okay. that's
because
great.
it's the requirements are per person 15 cubic feet per hour or something like that. So if there are 20 people, then the system should be running at full capacity.
Okay,
If there are, that's so nobody should, just because it's creating noise or if it's if it's bringing out cool air and uncomfortable, people should not be able to turn it off. So
understood,
it should always run.
understood. Okay, thanks.
Policy, Hanju? Is there anything you want to report?
We have a long list of upcoming policies that we're still working through. The agenda shows the ones that we have already advanced. A lot of it had to do with language updates, not really substantive in nature. The ones that are substantive in nature, which it includes, for example, the turf policy, whatever have you, those require much more of a deeper discussion. So we're working on it.
Okay. Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I see there was a lot of work started and a lot of discussion. So that's where this all begins, right? Mary, curriculum, I know we did a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we covered most of curriculum. I would encourage anyone who's looking at the electronic version of the agenda to look at some of the new and revised course offerings that we had. We had a great presentation from, supervisors about some of the newer courses and the revised courses. Always really interesting. Curriculum might be one of my favorite committees, I have to say, as a new person, even though
Right.
policy is very much fun. But we have good discussion of policy, but in all seriousness, it was a very robust conversation. curriculum. And I just wanted to say, on the no red ink in particular, that is a very specific, it's a fun way, this is gonna sound like it's impossible. It's a fun way to teach kids grammar in like 5 minutes a day. And it seems like it's a very efficient, easy to implement way to really improve the grammar as our kids are learning their writing skills. And I think it's something that is probably a little bit long overdue, but we're paying for it now, so that's good. And there was just, so we did quite a bit at curriculum, so we're all good.
You know, it's of interest to me, and I don't know for the other board members, but I would love to carve out a little time to have just short demonstrations of some of these new curriculum that is coming on. Because I really think that just progresses us that much further, and we have had this discussion year to year to year about grammar and whether we are teaching it.
If you
And
saw the,
we've
she did-
tried a lot of different things to teach grammar.
I think that would be really worthwhile, and it would literally be a 5-minute presentation. And it was pretty intuitive, I think.
Yeah, and I would just add a couple of more things from the curriculum meeting. One is almost every subject supervisor is now incorporating climate change related topics in their curriculum, and they are finding creative ways on incorporating them. And high school, there's a whole subject on that now, on like nature inspired engineering, that how when we are introducing, like, so when we are talking about academies, so RAP is an academy, Amsterdam is an academy, computer science may be an academy. So this year we started, or a high school started a new academy for engineering, and one of their books is for nature-inspired engineering. So it revolves around all the big events that happen due to climate impact, the big floods and all of that. So there is a deliberate attempt to add climate-related topics at every by every supervisor at every level.
Is
So
that because of New Jersey? Isn't that part of now the standard? Is that
those are
why?
very loose. The New Jersey standards, I think there are some people who are just taking a lot of credit, and the politicians that, okay, they did something, but what our supervisors are doing is much beyond that. And it's more driven with Mr. Miles and the sustainability groups, because um, we want points. So the sustainability points, and and I think it's not even that. It's I attended one of the seminars, and there were teachers from math, from our physical education, all like different departments that you would not even think, okay, how is that impacting climate change? And these teachers were attending that because they are curious, that how they are curious to find out ways to incorporate climate change into their curriculums. So I don't think it's just we are like checking the box for standards. It's driven by the teachers, by the supervisors. It's happening. Like it's because they want to do it, I think. Is
Yeah,
that
and we
correct,
actually-
Dr. Schwartz?
Yeah, absolutely. And we got word today actually that we did get two bronzes and one silver.
Right.
So we're going to so if anybody's coming to, I know some of you are coming to school boards, we could use some people to receive those awards down at the school boards workshop.
Yeah. So the awards is one like benefit or driver, but the teachers are driven. They want to learn about it, that how to incorporate that into their curriculum. So that a lot of work is happening there. And I think I said two things and I forgot the second one. So.
That was it. I just want to say, just as a compliment, our teachers are driven. That's a perfect sentence,
Right.
because I see across the board a great deal of intellectual curiosity. When Ashley Anembo was talking to us about the cybersecurity at the curriculum committee meeting, she was talking about how all these teachers came back so enthused. So I just, when you're in curriculum or you're a parent or in the community, you see it constantly, that the intellectual curiosity of our educators then benefits our kids. So it just seems like an appropriate time to note that.
Right.
And just-
And I now remember my second point. The second point from curriculum was, so one of the course that Mr. Ferrari introduced 2 years ago was ASL in high school. And that was an experimental introduction. And that is another course that we have a problem of too much participation. Like, so like we were talking about computer science, that we have these only one or two elective options and everybody wants to take those courses. So we have that same problem with ASL. It's a very popular course.
Very
It's
popular.
going into its third year now. And we have for 10th grade and 11th grade, I think we have now two sections for it. So like there are students who took it in 9th grade, it's more in 10th, and they all want to continue in 11th grade. So it's the third year for that course, and it's becoming a very popular course at high school.
I do feel that there's a lot of progress being made, so I think, as we look at our agendas, I would like, some focus on some of the newer curriculum things, not only what we're doing, but if, in fact, we're weaving in, climate change, how are we doing that? I think that's, important for the board to know. I also think it's good for the public, so, maybe we can look at that and plan that out a little bit. On communications, you saw it. We really spent most of the communications on the website, strategic plan, which Dr. Shores talked about, and some edits to the student survey, some wording, just to make the questions clearer, I think more for our elementary students. So talked a little bit about that. But lots of good, great work you saw with the website. So, we're really in a very good position to start the year.
Oh, I had a
Uh,
question on the strategic plan. So
Sure.
what's the time frame in terms of engaging the community? Like, I'm not, if you could talk about the schedule and when something like a more finished product would be unveiled.
We talked about that, Zira.
Yeah, we did talk about that, and I have we have a roadmap that we can share with you all from HYA, but they proposed a couple of different timelines, and we preferred the timeline that was a little more accelerated, like I said, so that we could have not just the strategy, but the actual action plan finished for the budget season, so that way we could be very clear about using those intentions to finalize our decisions around the budget. But basically, it's as I said, a monthly process. So September is really engaging all of our community members in these focus groups, and October is very much about processing all of that information. And then we'd be getting into formally developing the actual, and much of our plan is going to be built around the concept of a portrait of a graduate. So the portrait of a graduate, the focus would be on building the portrait of the graduate, and then what's our strategy to actually be able to accomplish this portrait of a graduate for all of our students, and then of course, what are the action plans? So it's basically monthly.
So, but in September, when you're meeting, other than the focus groups, there'll be people who might have input but will not be able to participate in the focus group. So we're doing like a thought exchange, or how will you capture that?
Well, there's a survey. There's a limited survey that's specifically limited so that way it's not overwhelming for folks. It's a 12-question survey, and basically what it's done is it's taken all of the input that you have all given HYA as well as our administrative team, and basically narrowed down from all the feedback to a handful of different topics that are of importance. And so the survey is going to be going out and asking people, please tell us of these list of 6 items, which 2 are of most important do you think are the most important? So then we can kind of quantify where in the community's mind what is most important. And then it's about really analyzing that data. So the board's going to be brought up to speed all along the way, and this is your strategic plan as much as it is mine. So you'll have lots of opportunities to see how it's unfolding as we go. But in terms of the timeline, we can share that document with you.
Yeah, I think the time will be very helpful. The second thing is in terms of the survey that's going to go out, is it just going to go out to the current student, current parents, or is it going to be, they could be a lot, the alumni may have some, more recent, valid input. How will you capture, how broadly disseminated will that survey be? So that's a question. You don't have to answer it now, but it's just a food, especially the more recent graduates, they may have some very, they might be very interested in providing feedback now, having been a graduate, going out to colleges, how RPS has situated them.
That's a great question. I can't tell you how
Okay.
broad, but it is our intention to be broad. So
Okay.
thank you.
So the survey will be going out to as broad as possible or not, in September. The data will be crunched by HYA in October.
Yep, I actually have it right here. I can give you a rundown, okay? So we're looking at the survey is going out the survey is going out in September as well. So that's going to be going out. Let's see where the survey launch is is anticipated is anticipated somewhere around the week of September 9th. So we'll clarify about how far out that's going. Focus groups are taking place through the month of September. There's going to be some crunching of all that data over the course of September and October. There are going to be advisory committees that are broken out in October as well. So there's a proposed, and again, this is all proposed. As we collect our data, we'll determine if we need to tweak this schedule, but this is what's proposed by our consultants. So meeting one would be focusing on reestablishing the state of the district, like per the state of the schools address, but in light of the recent feedback. Second meeting will be focusing on the portrait of the graduate, and the second and third meetings will be focused on portrait of a graduate and mission. Fourth meeting, somewhere in the ballpark of November, second week in November, would be articulating vision and mission. And then the fifth meeting, November 18th, would be to identify goals. And this would be work would be done by an advisory committee, which we'll be sharing with all of you. And these meetings will be virtual. Then throughout the December, January, February timeframe, we'll be working to develop action plans based on the outcomes of those other meetings. There's an intention to present the final plan to the board in the March timeframe.
Okay, because if the timeframe, if the desire is to have this at a point where this can influence or help guide some of the budgetary decision that, we vote on a preliminary budget in March, April.
Exactly.
So I'm not sure at what point the board will be brought in and what point the public will be brought in, but
Well,
there
I
needs
mean,
to be
the-
at least one.
Exactly. Well,
meeting.
I'm with you 100%. When it says final plan presented to BOE, to be clear, that's like the final unfurling of the whole
Yeah.
plan. But we're going to be well into this process throughout the whole budget timeframe.
Okay, so maybe I would just ask that, one, if there could be some clarification on how broadly disseminated the survey will be. And second would be a public, just even a touch point from maybe HYA or from you, just saying, here's where we are and here's kind of the broad outlines of what the strategic vision looks like in a very preliminary aspect. This strategic plan is designed to help provide a path for the entire district for at least 5 years.
Yep.
So I want to give it the weight and the time for the whole community to understand where we're going, rather than,
So
one and done is not.
there's actually a dashboard timeline that HYA, if you remember, was pitching to us that they really recommended that we use. So we're actually working with our tech team right now because our intention was to do our own.
Okay.
But if that's not something that's going to be readily able to do, then we're going to go ahead with HYA's dashboard. But the idea is just what you described, being very articulate and clear and visually clear about what our timeframes are and the deliverables and where we are in that process, so people
And
can see.
what it looks like right now. Right now, I know that we've been interviewed. I don't know what the collective.
Well, and the other thing I
shape
think
of it is.
that I
Administrator.
I
Yeah.
appreciate your focusing on the public, but I think what we really want to make sure that we're really clear about is what all your updates are, right?
Yeah, I have no
So-
updates.
So at each board meeting, I think it would be appropriate to allocate a portion of time in the board meeting to be really clear about what we've accomplished so far with the strategic
Oh,
plan.
that would be great. I
Yeah.
think, because it's such a critical.
I mean, it's critical and it's a major point of focus for us. And I could make this a part of my superintendent updates.
Oh, that would
as
be
well.
great. That would be great. Because the idea is that eventually it'll supplant maybe the mission statement that we have right there. Correct?
Potentially, yeah.
Yes. So it's
Could
that
change or
important.
s- Or stay the same.
Yeah, it could change, stay the same, but however we get there, we need to be as transparent and open as possible, because it's going to be right there guiding whatever we do as a district and the board. So I think it's really important that.
And for it to have meaning to folks, they have to be a part of the process.
Right. Thank you.
And feel a part of the process.
Which brings us into a discussion item, which is the 24-25 district goals.
Turn myself off. So I have a couple discussion items, if that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one, we don't need to necessarily have a big discussion right here and now. It's really a kickoff of a discussion because we do need 24-25 school year goals. And I've been working with the administrative team very similarly to how I did last year. And I've been working down to figuring out different ways to bucket some of our goal priorities. Last year, we decided on the goal, the buckets of, we focused on strategic planning. That was looking at the prior strategic plan and deciding whether to move forward with another strategic plan. We talked about math and language arts, particularly at the K-5 level. We talked about inclusivity, and we talked about finance and facilities. Those buckets really honestly still work in a lot of ways. I would expand the math and language arts to be more inclusive of all curricular subjects because I think we need to move towards a focus of equity of experience and quality control across all of our subjects. I think the inclusion could stand on its own as well, except that I'd like to expand that more to just general supports for students, including empowerment supports, which could be as diverse as diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives where we're celebrating student differences across the schools. It could also be making sure that we have appropriate immediate mental health supports for students if they're experiencing crisis. So effectively where we left it with the administrative team, when we kind of were, particularly the principals, when we talked this through, was that we're really looking to keep a strategic goal. Well, a framework that we think would work well would be keeping a strategic planning goal where we could memorialize what we're doing in strategic planning, to expand the math and ELA to just a general academic goal that's focused on really achievement for all students and high levels of achievement. And then expanding the inclusion goal to be more about student empowerment and student support. And then keeping, again, a finance and facilities goal. I'm sorry. Let me just finish painting the whole picture here. So I've charged the principals with working with their staff and working with each other to identify some targets. If you remember last year, we talked about really it was kind of a benchmark year. We didn't really know what to do as far as targets. So we made our goals kind of process oriented. So I don't think we can get away from having some process oriented goals this year as well. But I would like to, even though we have a strategic plan that's coming, I do think it would be helpful and healthy for us to start really looking to move some measures that matter to us. That means, first of all, choosing metrics that matter that we're already collecting data on. And we now have a really good amount of data from last year. And then moving towards picking those data, picking those measures, and then setting reasonable targets for which ones to improve and how much to improve them by. And the goal isn't to create some unrealistically high target that we have to change. We have to go 180 and like we have to take this number that's 50%. It's got to be 95%. It's more about engaging with our professionals and helping them to take some ownership over deciding which measures we care about right now, and then deciding what's a reasonable target. So I'd like to come back to you on September 12th with some suggestions for those targets. So what my big ask and how you can help me in preparing for a proposal for all of you is to share with me just, first of all, your thoughts on those buckets. 4 buckets is also a lot. I mean, theoretically, we could take the academics and the individual bucket and put them into strategic planning because that's all really going together. But also if you think that there are any specific areas, and you don't have to, again, we don't have to sit here and brainstorm and do this all right now, but if you could brainstorm after the meeting and think, are there any areas that you feel like on your mind are still things that we should call out in a district goal? So for example, we had a CPAG meeting not long ago, and we talked about presenting sort of like kind of putting together sort of a state of the schools address through like the lens of special education, like the state of special education. That's something that I think we should still make sure we enumerate in a district goal, right? So it's a process oriented goal, but it's still something I think we should call out. So I would just like to make sure that that as I'm crafting these and figuring out how to bucket them and tie targets to them, that I'm being inclusive of all the things that are top of mind for everyone.
So Dr. Schwartz, remind me on 23-24 goals, did we do a public presentation? I remember seeing a board presentation, but was it a public meeting, and
So-
is the presentation available to the public?
Yeah, so I gave a presentation to all of you, and then I wanted to be responsive to the public, so I carved out time in one of my coffees
Okay.
where I went through it, but I have not given it at a board meeting. So it would be appropriate to actually give a version of that at the 12th meeting
Because
gut
that's the board,
conversation.
those were like superintendent goals from the board. So I think that the wrap up of 23, 24 goals should be at a board meeting.
Yeah.
So, and there were a couple of slides there where I had requested more detailed information. There was a staff survey that was at the district level, and I had requested that at the building level and at the position level. Like we just clubbed everything as district staff, and I requested the separation between teachers and assisting staff, especially at the elementary school level. So for each building, what those numbers look like. And also, I think there were some numbers that it was not enumerated, but I found a recording and I had forwarded to everybody on the board that we had talked about looking at numbers for Haas, that how many students are buzzed there versus how many students are. So we had talked about collecting that data, and that was agreed to at that meeting. So it was in two recordings that I forwarded. I did not see that in the minutes, but so so what the first point is that we have to close the loop on last year's goals, and then last year's goals were about analysis, right? A lot of action was already taken, which is beyond the goal. So that kudos to you on that we accomplished a lot. But essentially, as a board, we set your goals as analyze or collect the data, and then so from those goals that were last year's goals, anything that was analyzed and we identified room for improvement, those should definitely become action item for this year. And we may put a bigger bucket, but those should be spelled out that anything that we identified in last year's analysis, that, hey, these are the areas for improvement where we need to act on, those should be part of. And so, for example, some of the things that are accomplished already, math, we already have changed everything, but for ELA, it's still work in progress. So that we still have to have a goal for ELA for what will be accomplished this year, because that's still very loose, that what are we doing this year versus what are we doing next year. So we need to carry on as a goal. And then if we identify anything from the diversities survey, that if there is anything glaring on the screen when we are looking at that, then you come and tell us what can be changed.
So that just to be clear, that sentiment that you just described, that's the process I'm going to be doing.
Okay.
And so but I don't want to speak for all of you. I mean, I have my notes. So what I'm asking is if you have any items that are, I mean, you can bring it to me on the 12th and I'll get this to you in advance so you can see it beforehand if you want. But if you just know on the top of your head that there's something that's a significant concern that you want to make sure that I'm
So,
processing as I'm doing
Yeah,
this.
mine are those two. One is the ELA that we need a solid plan for, actually three. One is the ELA. The second one is we had the analysis for high school, the whole admission process, the focus on academics, and high schools, like defining our focus, our concentration, that how much emphasis we put on academics in high school. So we need to come up with some action on this year. And the third one is the diversity of our staff.
So I have a question. My first question was, and I appreciate everything that you just said. I agree with you, kind of like a summary, but I also thought that the state of the schools address was in part designed to tell us where we were at in terms of the goals. So I feel like a lot of that information is out there, but certainly, a smaller bullet point presentation to wrap it up. And I agree, like I would call them leftover items, right? What we didn't get to, what needs to be done is fine. The thing that, and I don't know how you're gonna articulate this, but the thing that really jumps out at me is when, and I wasn't on the board at the time, but when you identified all the district goals, we had not had 3 devastating floods where we lost, use of our athletic facilities for a great deal of time. And I feel that every time it rains, I say another prayer. Okay. And I am concerned about that. And I know it's a big issue, but I think that we need to be specific. And I know that we have a large, old district in terms of buildings and facilities, and there is so much work to be done. But I do feel like with climate change and circumstances that has become particularly pressing. and that we need, and there's a lot of discussion about facilities use and what kind of material we're gonna have. So I think that we need to be mindful of that and come up with a very specific goal related to that. It might simply be analysis. I think it probably is just analysis this year, but we need to on a parallel track also talk about what our contingency plans are, particularly in light of the fact that we heard from our insurance carrier, and I know that that may not be settled, that our deductible was raised, 10 times. So there's a significant financial cost to us that, wasn't present even a month ago, right? So we really need to know what we're doing with that, because we have great needs in this district for all of our facilities and our fields, and we're gonna have to start to prioritize them, and I think it's appropriate to do that in terms of the district
Well,
goals.
those are the
So,
assessments. You know,
right, the assessments, yeah, but,
The assessment should give us the
Right.
data. So if you would look at that.
right,
I
and
don't
so
know.
we need to move that a little bit more quickly, but I just feel that, that issue has blossomed and taken on a life of its own because of circumstances, conversations. Maybe not very helpful. I'm not being very articulate, and I apologize for that. But I find we need to find a way to put that all together in a nice pithy statement, which you're really good at, and then help us figure out how to, get where we need to go.
Yeah, because I mean, historically, we have been very event driven. We flood, we respond, remediate.
Yeah,
But
we can't
but
afford
we
to do,
can't
we
do that.
literally can't afford to do
Right,
that anymore.
right.
I agree with you 100%.
And so there is no contingency, the ability to take a breather, to do the analysis, to have a very comprehensive.
We kind of lost that.
Yeah, the strategy, because you're simply putting out the fire, putting the field back
Right.
together so kids can play. So.
We'd like to, right.
So
I
to
agree.
have that being elevated, and to have it more concrete.
We're serious about this, and we
Yeah,
need to
but-
figure it
yeah,
out.
and
And,
have a-
and yeah.
Yeah, and it could be, it certainly has been an open discussion point, but to maybe
But it,
articulate it so that we can have like maybe.
yes,
step
because the
number one.
discussion is very free ranging. It's like an
Yes.
Italian Sunday family dinner,
Yes,
which I'm very comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with that model. However, sometimes you don't get much accomplished at the end of
yeah.
the day.
And
So
we
I'm just trying to,
we do
you know.
frankly have to then, deal with that episode, that
Yeah.
event.
Yeah.
So then
We're on
it
the same
just
page.
Yeah, but to the extent that
Yeah.
we can certainly, bubble it up, I
Yeah.
think it's definitely worthwhile,
No,
because
100%.
that's what we should be doing. In addition to that, and I think I just thought about this because you were saying, nobody wants to go to school, about fresh air and the need for fresh air and access is, the, steps location. This is, during especially renewal periods when the rent increases hit, that building is for sale. And so there is, perhaps an opportunity, not an opportunity, but we just need to think about holistically where we are, what's the best way to serve the population, and the lens by which we think about general ed facilities and the need for fresh air. We should certainly apply that to the STEPS program. So I just, it's maybe not a district goal or anything like that, but
Would that
been
be
thinking
part
about
of
it.
the analysis of the special ed programs generally? Do you think it's appropriate to put it in there? Or it's kind of, because it falls
yeah.
under the umbrella, it's slightly different. I understand that, and I know that there's different considerations, but I'm just making a suggestion if that might help to
Certainly fits under that.
find a place to put it.
And it's
you
about
know.
equity.
That topic
I
certainly
understand.
fits the umbrella.
Yeah, it's the equity component too.
Okay, so, with all this, and if anybody thinks of anything else during the course of the week, please get it to Dr. Schwartz, and then we'll revisit this on. But let's be mindful that there's X amount of days, and hours for your goal work. So the strategic plan might incorporate some of this work. And certainly the facility review, and field review is part of that. So, so the buckets might work very nicely. When you talk about empowering students, you're also talking about, SEL and mental health, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so might work. Okay, and then the next discussion item is election day calendar changes and I don't know, was this in the FYI at all? If not.
No.
um,
No,
okay.
so just some context, again,
Yeah.
just initial conversation. We're not making a decision just yet, but I just wanted to put out there, be transparent that we were being asked by the village clerk and the village manager to consider closing schools on election day. This came up last year. I was cognizant for the presidential election. I was up the top for discussion in the calendar committee that we have in the district, which is a broad representation of stakeholders, including a few students. And the committee, they didn't feel like it was necessary to not hold school. The point of contention is just the anticipated high volume of participation and the fact that there's, as a general topic of concern among some folks, is election integrity. And the idea that, you know, a lot can go wrong on a school day, alarms can go off, like they could theoretically shut down the polling station. And there's just a lot of variability. So in good faith, working with my village partners, I'm giving the topic consideration. Of course, this really isn't just an administrative decision. Calendar is something that I recommend to the board using a process that's pretty well spelled out. So I will be putting together the calendar committee to have this conversation with them formally. And I wanted to just give all of you an opportunity to weigh in if you wanted to. We don't have to do this again right now because it's a process. It's not something I would change without consulting you. That said, on our calendar right now, there's a professional development day in March that could theoretically just be changed to this date. So that could become a full day of school, and the professional development day could be scheduled for November 7th. So we'd still have people in the building. They would just be the professionals in the building. I don't love the idea. I don't love the idea of having kids in school during an election. And I also don't love the idea of not being able to hold school because there's an election. I guess the idea that I love the most is not having elections in schools at all. But that's definitely that's definitely my bias, because I just feel like it's an interference in the schools, but I understand that, you know, schools are a community resource. So I just thought again, I'm not trying to invite us to be here till 12 o'clock tonight, but I thought that I would, just put that out there and hear what thoughts you have, and I can certainly represent those thoughts, through the committee and I really would like to hear what you all have to say.
This has come up quite a bit, actually, now that I think about it. And I thought this was one of those, it was a free range discussion, nothing really, you know, we didn't get resolved. But one of the points that somebody brought up, if I remember correctly, was that we have that week is also the teacher conference. So then it just becomes.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's not,
it-
it-
One day of school.
Right. And so what happens is people tend to not show up, or there could be a chance that it becomes a childcare management issue for working families. And it's simply really difficult if, you know, I can imagine lots of families just simply taking the day off, absentee, having students not be in school for that whole week, basically, potentially.
I think,
I think that's.
I don't know the right answer to that. I think that I hadn't ever thought of it in terms of the election integrity side of the argument. What I've often heard is just the concern about security and safety for the kids in the schools.
Yes.
Because you have so many individuals who are, you know, getting access to the schools. And I mean, based on anything that I've ever seen, is you don't have, you know, robust security necessarily. I think those are all factors that you and the calendar committee will need to consider. You know, not very helpful, but it is.
Interestingly, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, so I mean, my thoughts on this are, I agree, like, I think closing the schools is a big inconvenience for a lot of people, and it, you know, is another day off, and especially that week. So Dr. Shores, I would just ask that, you know, to actually ask for facts, like, what are the real facts on the ground, why we should be closing this? Has there been more danger across the country on election day, or do we actually have numbers around that? Is there actual heightened risk of some sort? We're just making a lot of assumptions without any facts to back it up. So that's what I would ask to see kind of before we make those decisions. And then maybe if it's a security concern, do we just pay for some extra security that day and keep the schools open? That might cost us less from a district perspective, potentially.
Yep, I think that's the right way of going about it. And I specifically asked that if the, since what I'm hearing is that the push is coming from the county, I specifically asked that if there was any documentation that we could have from the county to support this. So I don't have it yet. But I agree. I think some sort of an analysis would be really helpful here.
And if it's coming from the county, perhaps there's some county resources that they could provide for us if it's, maybe a SRO for the day from a different school district, or, to the extent that the county, if this is a desire, if they could help fund that. Because not from a closure perspective, but from a security perspective and election integrity, they have more.
They're concerned about the school, the daily business of the school interfering with the election process. Is that what I heard you say? As opposed to,
I'm not going to speak for them. I'm just
no,
trying
I
to say,
just
like,
trying to
these are
understand
the-
what was presented to you. That's
So it was presented to me, well, there was a couple things presented to me. One of them was that there's going to be a very high volume. They're concerned about potential conflicts occurring, like, again, not of violence per se, but potential disruption if there's long lines or if there's a delay because of a school function or something, that there could be people could have to wait in line. They don't want people to become agitated if there's any kind of delay at the polls. They also threw in that it would be very helpful to have high school students could be paid to work as poll workers if we weren't open.
That's interesting.
That's an interesting
kids off
additional
schools.
additional component.
It's just-
I mean, I don't think anyone thinks that there would be violence like that would threaten children. I don't hear that from anybody. But I do think it's a matter of logistical headache. For me, when I think about as the superintendent of schools, what would my reservations be? I don't love the idea of many, many, many people coming in and out of our schools while their kids are there. I don't love that idea. I also don't love the idea that this isn't a political statement. I think this is factual. There are some people who are going into this election who I understand are going to be concerned about the integrity of the electoral process, the election process. And again, I'm getting pretty worst case scenario here, but like, let's say an alarm goes off, or like we have to hold a lockdown or extended lockdown, or like and that's local to our building that isn't being widely felt. Like, it's not like an earthquake where everybody feels it, but like a ball hits a fire alarm, and we can't figure out what happened, and somebody feels like they smelled gas, and now we've got to call in a lot of first responders to evaluate the building. I mean, something like that could be a disruption that could last an hour, theoretically. I mean, I've seen that before. If that just happens to coincide on election day, you could have an entire poll station that people get locked out for an hour. And I mean, I am programmed to think in terms of worst case scenarios, but theoretically, someone could allege that the alarm was pulled, and someone could allege that that someone's rights were violated because they couldn't get into the poll station that they were assigned to. So I'm not going to put that level of concern on the village because they didn't articulate that. But as I just run through, like, well, what could happen? I mean, that's probably a worst case scenario of what would happen. I mean, a worst case scenario would be someone would get hurt, but I think that's so unlikely that it's not really worth considering. But I think that but I do think that like something that disrupts polling could happen, and that could be
But
ugly.
that could happen in any polling facility.
Correct.
And I
So-
thought when we thought about this last time, Sheila, I feel like someone told us that where people are coming in to vote are closed off from the,
Most
Right.
of the schools, some of the schools aren't. The high school is not closed off. Though I suspect you could gather everybody to go in through just gym one.
Maybe just have a
Um,
security officer blocking the hallway.
I don't
access.
know. There's something
With
about having a
SRO.
police officer or security office or within the close by or something, is there?
Yeah, I have to follow up on exactly what that rule is. There's been a general guidance about police officers not being at polling stations. There might be some sort of an exemption about
Oh.
that. But that's the reason why the district has paid for private security in the past, and the police have not actually manned the polling stations. There's concerns by some around voter intimidation.
Oh.
Now, so my thing is that with the presidential election, we're looking at about 75% of voters voting. The voters have an option, and how many voters are really using the other options, which are early voting or absentee? So we can, and the last time was 2020, but we didn't, everybody was not absentee, mail-in ballots, right? So it didn't materialize. So I mean, those facts, because if this is going to be the request for every presidential election coming from the county, and I don't know, will, but now this is the second time, do we build that into making our calendar every 4 years and just build in every presidential election year close? But we have other elections that happen in the buildings. We have the primaries that don't bring out as many, and then the local elections on the off, not a presidential year, it's probably about 30% or so. So for me, we have to differentiate between what elections we're going to close for, and then have significant reason. I agree. I'd like to move the elections out of the schools completely. And I know I had that conversation years ago, and it was no, and no again. And I made no, but I don't see why we can't continue that conversation and understand why, at least for some of our schools that are not a single entrance into the voting, can't be moved. Willard's one of them. The high school's another. BF, you're going in those front doors, and it's in the hallway, in that front, right in front of the auditorium is where they're voting. But the schools like, Pause and Orchard, yeah,
I mean, yeah.
Travell.
Yeah.
What school do we not have voting in? Ridge?
I think Ridge, I don't think there's
Yeah,
anybody.
I don't think there's voting in Ridge. So, but the other schools, you have direct entrance into the room that, like Travell, you go right in and you can't get into the school. So there are some protections on that. So if we even concentrated on, for the future, on those buildings that don't have a single entrance in for the voters, would that make a difference? And could those schools be moved? There's parameters. You have to move, you can move a polling place, but it has to be within a certain distance from the.
Yeah, I mean, the very arguments for why the school district is designated as a polling station, I think are sound. It is a taxpayer and resident asset. And it's a public space. And I'm a little discomforted by the idea that we would, you want to provide as many voting opportunities as possible.
Absolutely.
And by closing off those opportunities, I don't know, disenfranchisement. I think just.
Well, I'm not saying close them all, the ones that don't have direct access.
So I guess the question
it-
is there a way to create separate access, right? Rather than shutting the school down completely, either through private security if police officers cannot be, or county resources, I'm not sure. But is there a way to just kind of direct people a roundabout entrance with enough signage?
I think we
I
just need
don't
to
know.
understand if there's any
Yeah.
facts or other
Yes.
statistics around
Yes.
the danger level that they could provide us, so we can weigh that in. Because let's not forget the people that are, or a lot of the people that are coming to vote are most likely Ridgewood residents.
They're residents, yeah.
That are
Yeah,
registered.
Yeah, so,
A lot of those people could be coming to back to school nights without going for body scans. So
Right,
you still have the
true.
same type of threat potential, like where parents are just walking into the school. I mean, I obviously, these are parents. These are not always parents, so there's a little bit of a Venn diagram there. But parents are walking in without going through security procedure as well for back to school nights or other functions at school as well. So are we gonna section those off? Are we gonna provide additional security every time?
That's a lot to think about.
Dr. Schwartz, can we poll superintendents and other school districts through your association that how many other schools close and what is the protocol in New Jersey? Because we are probably not the only district that,
Well, if the county's asking, then there's 73 school districts.
is the county asking or is the village manager asking?
Well, I'm hearing this through the village.
Right.
Yeah,
but
I don't
But
think.
the village is
yeah.
telling me that they're receiving pressure through the county.
They're saying
And
the county.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
But
pressure,
it's not county soup. It's not the educational
Yeah,
to be
side.
clear,
It's
to be
the,
clear.
It's a,
Yeah,
yeah,
to be clear, it's not the county department. of
and those are
Education.
political
Right, yeah.
positions.
right.
Yeah.
So that's a
So
different.
those are
As a-
political
those
positions,
are- as
elected
it's- yeah.
positions.
Yeah.
So I think that,
Mhm.
I think getting more information, I think would be appropriate and helpful. I think some good questions here, our discomfort with holding school. A lot of the stuff that I'm sure the village hears about and I do hear about there are some specific schools where it's not as easily partitioned off. So we can get a little more information on that as well. But I'm hearing from, as a board, it sounds like as a board, there's a reluctance to close school on that day
Yes,
for the sake of educational continuity for the students.
absolutely.
And my vote is basically based on, like, I don't have specific opinion. I have listened to Dr. Fishbein as a resident and when he used to talk about this, and I think his view his view used to be that it's an educational opportunity for students when they see the election in process. So he always advocated not to close it, but a lot has changed in the society since before 2000 versus now. So it's your decision from my perspective. So whatever you recommend, I'll agree to that.
I appreciate that.
Okay, well, we'll get some more data. This will come back on the agenda September 12th. There's probably some kind of a deadline that we would need, so if we are gonna close.
As a courtesy, I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to drag this on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be, if there is a closure, I wouldn't want it to be last minute. So I prefer to give people certainty
Yeah.
as to what our position is going to be sooner than later. And I think September 30th is probably quite late. So if we can get it together for the 12th, that'd be very helpful.
I had another thing on discussion that is not on the thing, and I won't belabor it, but there just have been some concerns, and I'm addressing it to Mrs. Murphy here particularly. But as the school year begins, particularly at the high school, we often have, either frequent absences on a regular basis or absences of instruction or teachers that are totally permissible and fine, but that will go, like for 10 school days in a row. And so there's been some concern about Google Classroom doesn't necessarily cut it in terms of sufficiency of instruction. And I know that you've taken there's been some new initiatives that are happening this year. So I was hoping you could speak to that to maybe allay some of the concerns that have been expressed to me and that I know I have.
Sure. So I think all of us heard some of the concerns last year that were brought to us, especially around teacher attendance at the high school. Not necessarily that there was poor attendance or attendance that was, as you said, not permissible, just that it was because of how coverages are done at the high school. It was creating a lack of continuity sometimes in instruction. So having those conversations, we began to look a little bit more deeply at what attendance patterns were, what some of the reasons for that are. So from an administrative level, Mr. Nias and his administrative team are taking a closer look at specific cases, this school year, and we'll address them as the need arises. In addition to that, part of the work we did during the REA contract was to include some new language around allowing staff to cover classes, especially when you have what I would call a short-term leave of absence. So, and I think I had shared some at an earlier meeting perhaps about this as well. However, I find we refer to this like the sandwich generation many of our teachers are in. They're caring for both children and for aging parents. And I think, post-COVID, there's been a lot of changes in family structures, and we find ourselves having more and more staff members having to be out for 4 or 5 days to really, assist a parent or another relative or to deal with a change with a child or some difficulty with their own family. And in doing that, we find that you can't get a leave replacement. And, the other way, because it's very short term, and part of the other challenge is, we sometimes use what we call point two. We have other teachers from the department that teachers from cover, which is still a strategy that we'll use depending on the amount of time someone is out. But we now have language around this 10 days. And it's good they use it because anything beyond 10 days is considered a long-term leave of absence. It's getting board approved. We are looking for a more permanent solution for that absence. So we have someone certificated and appropriate to take that instruction along while that person's out. However, under 10 days, it gets complicated. So the new language allows us to have class coverage. So a staff member can be paid to cover a period at an hourly rate. It may not be someone who is certificated in that content, but it is one of our certificated high school teachers that is familiar with instruction, familiar with the curriculum at the high school, familiar with the program, and can step in for that day or 2 or 3 and help to lead curriculum along, even if they're not the curriculum expert. They're more of a hands-on person in that classroom than just Google Classroom or even one of our daily subs. So that's one strategy we're using this year, and we'll see how that goes. In addition, we did some analysis around substitutes in general, and we have found that one of the things we've been doing since COVID, but we're sort of increasing these roles in certain schools this year, is the use of what we would call a permanent sub. So this is someone who may have a regular teaching cert or a substitute cert, but they're going to be our higher caliber substitutes. They have more school experience and they're assigned to regular schools. So we did increase the number of permanent substitutes at both the high school and both middle schools for September in order to make sure that these people become part of the faculty, they become part of the fabric of the school, and they provide more continuity. They're there, the teachers know them, there's conversation, they're helping in classes if they're not covering a class. And so they're more familiar and able to, again, provide more of that hands-on instruction and help that we're looking for when someone is out. Again, yes, I understand it's not the same as having the regular teacher there, and we are working on strategies to address that as well. But overall, when we look at the data, our teachers actually have very good attendance, and there's just pockets of areas that we have to address.
It's not, was never meant as a criticism so much as it was just because there's 180 days of school, right? So if you don't get to it, you can't extend the school year to finish the instruction. And so the idea is just to make sure that to the extent possible, we maintain the level of instruction that the kids need so that they get the foundation to move forward and get the education. So that's the concern. And I appreciate all the work you've been doing on it. I know you spent a lot of time on it and kind of brainstorming other things. So thank you for that explanation as well. Appreciate it.
Can I ask you a follow-up on that? Is the permanent subs, are they, when you mean permanent subs, they are there at the school whether a sub is required or not?
Mhm.
So,
But they're always needed. There's never a day when they're not utilized in some capacity at the school to cover classes or to cover for a para that's out. I mean, even on the first day of school, there will be people that are out because things happen. And we are a large district with close to 700 certificated staff members. That's a lot of people. I'm not even counting, the paras, and other individuals that need substitute coverage sometimes. So there is always a use for those individuals. And we're not talking about like 20 people that we're deploying all day. We're talking about, 3 permanent subs at the high school and both middle schools. We've been utilizing 1 in the past. So we're expanding slowly. We'll see how this goes. We want to make sure that we're also not deploying a resource that's not going to be utilized. So we can always increase, and we're using our substitute funds to fund that additional. So they're still being paid out of the same budget pocket that we would be using for our regular substitutes.
At what point do they not become substitutes and become just full-time FTEs?
But they're not full-time. They work 5.75
Oh,
hours a
gotcha.
day. We keep
Right.
them,
But they can't be lunch aides.
well, they can,
Okay.
but those are the elementaries.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Secondary.
So we
works
have
a little
3.
differently.
So we have 3 permanents at the high school, and you
Mhm.
said 1 for each of the middle schools?
No, 3 at each middle school for
I'm
this.
sorry?
3 at
3.
each middle school for this year.
So 3 at the high school, 3 at each of the middle schools, and then we have anybody for elementary?
Yep, the elementaries each have 1 with the exception of Ridge and Hawes, which when we looked at some of our data about substitute coverage, those schools receive the least amount of daily subs responding. So each of those schools will have 2 to start the school year. You're welcome.
Okay, we'll move to acceptance of minutes. We've got the June 10th, June 20th, July 22nd.
I just want to make a note that I updated the time
Oh, good.
on the June 10th, 2024 executive session.
The second one,
For
we updated
section
the
2.
time. It had the wrong time. It had started 6. The second one did not start at 6.
It's executive 3 was.
Are we ready
It's
to?
not on there, so we're
So
okay.
with that, edit, I move the executive and regular, meeting minutes listed.
second. I just note that what's not included in here is executive session 3 from June 10th, when we actually concluded and adjourned the meeting.
Yeah,
finally.
it is.
No, it's not on the agenda. We reviewed it, but it's, right? Am I?
Yeah.
No, it's not on the agenda.
It's in the packet, but it's not listed on the agenda.
It's not
Oh,
listed,
got
like
it.
literally
So-
not listed, so I don't know.
If it was reviewed and you want to amend
I didn't get to review that one.
Okay, so then,
We'll.
yeah, I
bring-
just wanted to make it
Thank
clear
you,
because
yes.
you want to finish it, right?
On
So,
June 10th,
yeah,
the third
Third.
executive session will be on the September 12th
right,
agenda. Got it. Even though it's in our packet. Correct. Yeah,
right.
it's just not
And-
listed. I
And
got
I
it.
second what's listed here as well.
Mr. Donnie?
I think it's just an all in favor.
I'm going to abstain from July 22nd minutes. I was not here.
And I'm going to
So the-
abstain from, I think it's June 20th. I think I was away too.
So I'm just voting yes on June 10th and June 20th.
Okay, and you are abstaining from the 20th?
I don't think I was here. I think I was still in Africa, so. I think I think it was June 20th.
Yeah, she missed, I remember.
Yeah, it was June
There was a
20th,
meeting
which is what I was like,
that you missed.
yeah.
You want me to call individual?
I
with
guess
those?
we better.
Yeah, okay. So,
was
Mr.
here
Donnie
for the
voting
month.
on everything except for July 22nd.
Correct. So 3 minutes from July 22nd, I'm abstaining.
Ms. Quack, everything but June
June
20th.
20th, I was absent.
Ms. McCallie,
Everything, yes.
Mr. Mahmood, Ms. Brogan.
Yes. You know what, is there any other business? Otherwise, we'll go to comments from the public. Go to comments from the public. Is there? They're open for public comment now, if there's anybody listening. There are no hands. So we'll close, public comment and, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. You second it, Anju? Okay. All in favor, or would you like just to stay a little longer?
Aye.
Okay. Everyone have a good night. See you at Convo